with Solana. The VM can basically take C++ or Rust code and turn that into a smart contract.
You're like one of my heroes.
We are therefore integrating Solana into Brave as soon as we can.
Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to the growth stage. My name is Aleftina from Solana team, and this is actually our second day of the Breakpoint, but for some of you, it might be your first day. So welcome to the conference. Welcome to the Breakpoint. We're going to open today's sessions on the growth stage with a series of demos from new, fresh projects. We will follow up with several panels, and among all of our attractive list is crypto, politics, and policy. We're going to chat about legal and politics, how they connect to the crypto. We will talk about how to boost the mainstream adoption. After that, we have two panels around the NFTs and NFT marketplaces, which you don't want to miss, as well as the closing panel is actually about World of Warcraft. I will introduce you to these panels a little in more details closer as they come. And the next panels actually will be moderated by my colleague, Andrea Baglioni. So where are you? Welcome to the stage. He will present you the series of demos.
Thank you. As Aleftina mentioned, we have a series of pretty awesome demos coming up for you right now. Before that, I wanted to take a quick second and actually shout out Aleftina herself. She's been a pretty huge part of making all of this happen. So if you see her afterwards, grab her a free coffee or one of the free drinks or something, and just say thank you. Let's get started with the demos right away. First off, we have Harsh. He is a serial entrepreneur, over 11 years experience, and he'll be walking us through the Ethereum push notification service and its future on Solana. Harsh,
awesome.
Take it away.
Yep. Thanks, Andrea. Hey, everyone. So yeah, we are Ethereum push notification service, but yeah, considering we are on Solana, let's call it everything push notification service. What we are and what we do, we'll get to it in a while. Before that, we like to begin everything with some good vibe video. So we have something for you guys. Awesome. Hopefully, you guys liked it. So yeah, moving to the problem we are solving. Well, we are solving the problem of communication, or the lack of it. Just think about it. When you are on Web 2.0, everything happens from notification. You get up in the morning, you see your Gmail. You get up, you order something, you see notifications on Amazon. Your loan expires, you get a notification from your bank. Something which we all do is WhatsApp chat and FaceTime calls. But surprise, surprise, that also happens through notification. But that's Web 2.0. When you come to Web 3.0, this is absent. There's no communication layer, and because of that, critical info drops away. Well, if you are into DeFi, your loan liquidates, and you don't get to know about it. If you are into governance, again, proposals will come and go. You don't get to know about it. Something as basic as you sending crypto and receiving crypto, you don't get to know about that. And something as critical as your crypto exploits or smart contract bugs, you as a user or a wallet address don't get to know about that. So what's the solution for that? Well, for Web3, creating a new primitive, which is a decentralized communication protocol that can first enable notifications to user wallets, and there onwards, chat, decentralized video, and so much more. We did that for you guys. What we built is an open communication layer, which can be tapped by any crypto front end And this protocol can allow you as a wallet address to receive notifications, whether you are on Solana, whether you are on Ethereum, whatever blockchain you choose to be. Then, yeah, if we have to compete with Web 2.0, we have to become like them. That means that we need to have these notifications as dynamic. It doesn't have to be just text. Imagine when you wake up in the morning, a proposal comes in. And in that notification, you have a yes and no. That's possible now because of us. And of course, we had to make it multi-chain and platform agnostic just because crypto wallets and blockchain, they are two different beasts. And any crypto wallet should show all the notifications that's coming to you. So yeah, how do we do that? Not simple, but let me explain. So there's this EPNS core. This is our smart contract residing on Ethereum. This enables governance for all the channels that want to send notification. Then we have something called EPNS.com. It's a relatively simple contract that is deployed on every chain, along with EPNS.com SDK that enables off-chain notifications. And at the center of it are push nodes. These are open P2P communication nodes that are validating, that are listening to EPNS.com, and whatever things are coming in, they are validating and finally admitting it into the network. And after that, very simple, any crypto wallet can just tap into it and can just listen and show these notifications to you guys. Little bit more about us. So we are backed by a lot of awesome Web3 leaders, including Balaji, Sandeep, Binance, Proventures, and so on. We started from Ethereum, and we are so grateful to have such a cool partnership list. We are working with Uniswap, Gitcoin, Polygon, Aave, MakerDAO, everyone to enable decentralized notifications to wallet address, no matter if you're a dApp, smart contract, backend, or anything else. If you want to build chat, if you want to build decentralized video, EPNS protocol is a new communication stack that needs to be in Web3. OK, so time to show you what you as a user should expect. So this is a video about that. Let me just play it out. So very simple. You can go on any crypto dApp, any crypto front end. Right now, we are in our front end. And let's say you want to opt in for a notification. What you have to do is just opt in, sign the wallet, sign the message with your wallet, and that's it. You're done. You're all ready to receive notification on the crypto wallet of your choice. For example, this is our mobile app listening to EPNS protocol, and Aave notification just went by. All right, but what happens if you're a developer? Well, it's a little more complex in that sense, but let's see how the journey looks like. So let's say you are a Breakpoint wallet. Solana believes in multi-chain, so let's say Breakpoint wanted to create a notification layer on Ethereum connected with Solana. So right now, Breakpoint is just creating their channel. Essentially, it's a front end. Everything is getting communicated on the protocol level as well as the push node level. What you have to do is you have to stake some amount of DAI, which is stablecoin. There's a cool theory about that. Whenever any services are staking DAI, we basically lend it out to Aave. We generate the interest, and the interest is getting split proportionally among token holders. Once you do that, of course, we are just trying to speed up the entire Ethereum process. But yeah, once you have created a channel, because you are on Solana, you have to do one more verification checkpoint. I'm not going to go into that. Instead, I'm going to just show you how Solana notification works. So yeah, you have created the channel now. What you need to do is run a couple of scripts. Again, we are coming on Solana, so because of that, this is just a POC in process. Once we are there, you just need to use our SDK, or just use our dApp, or create your own. Again, it's an open communication protocol. So right now, what we did was we verified the channel. Once the verification of the channel was done, the user, which is a wallet address, we just called our push node, indicated that we have subscribed to the channel. And that's about it. After that, I can send any notification from anywhere. So yeah, right now we are just sending the notification. The payload is content and storage independent. So over here, it's getting uploaded to IPFS, but it can be smart contract bytes. It can be anything which you want. And yes, once that's done, this is our browser extension. In theory, even MetaMask or Trust or Phantom or any other wallet can just tap into it and can just show how notifications look like. So yeah, as you can see, we just sent out some notifications, and you can see the notifications in action. So yeah, all right, so one more demo. This is, again, just a demonstration of how powerful and flexible the network is. You can even send a manual payload, just like I defined, like the EPNS COM. You can use the SDK, or can just generate a payload and send it out to the network, and the network will essentially validate everything and show the notifications out. So yeah, that's the demo, guys. We love to do alpha drop. So yeah, we launched phase 0, which was our governance of our push token. Then our mainnet is audited. We are coming very soon on Ethereum, followed by, of course, Polygon and Solana. And yeah, future plans, we have these push nodes that form the open communication layer. We want to enable staking and slashing on it, because, of course, we want this to be decentralized. Thank you so much. You can follow us on EPNS Project, Telegram, and Twitter. That's it. Thanks, guys.
Thanks so much, Harsh. That was really good. Let's head over here to let Vidor get set up. Can you talk to us a little bit about why you're building this on Solana now, and maybe a little more detail around the timeline for when we can expect it on Solana?
Sure. So the future is multi-chain. And I'm also seeing a lot of innovative developers coming on Solana. And what our vision is that this needs to be a de facto Web3 communication stack. So of course, Solana makes that much more sense. In terms of when we are launching on Solana, I mean, the POC is done. So hopefully, very, very soon.
Cool. Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Andrea.
Appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right. For our next demo, we have a somewhat legendary Solana builder already. He's been building full-time on blockchain since 2016. He's the founder of Solrise Finance, which, of course, has built not only Solrise Finance, but Solflare and Solana Beach as well. Vidor will be presenting Solrise Finance today, and I'll let you take it from here.
Thanks, Andrea. Thanks, everyone, for coming and for everyone tuning in online. I will be demoing our app, which is Solrise Finance. In essence, it is a decentralized asset management protocol. So that can mean many things. But ultimately, our goal and vision is to provide good investment opportunities to the wider masses. In our platform, two types of users exist: fund managers and investors. I'm going to quickly go through the platform, and I'm going to first show how one can create a fund, and then how one can invest in some of those investment funds. The thing is, and our goal is to make investing really easy, like one click of a button. And the other side, on the fund manager side, we aim to provide all the tools to fund managers that they would use in their day-to-day trading activities. So let's get started. Initially, when you load the app, what you can see is a list of funds that people have created and deposited money into. You can sort it by fees, AUM, total profit, or performance. As you see, there are more than 500 funds currently on our mainnet deployment. So let's then just go right in and create a fund. You might see that I already have 2 funds created. I'll create a new one. Click there. Let's call it Hello Breakpoint. And I want to set a specific performance fee. So performance fees, as you probably all know, are basically what percentage of the total profits the fund manager takes from managing user funds. We're good guys, so let's go with 5%. It asks for a confirmation, and I just go create a fund. Obviously, it's connected to my Soulflare wallet, and it asks me to approve the transaction. Everything's blazing fast since we're leveraging the throughput, speed, and very low transaction fees of Solana. So this is my investment fund. As you see, I currently, as a seed deposit, have only $1 in it. Let's try to do some other things. So for example, let me see. I want to trade assets. Currently, these are the assets that are available on the platform. We are working on adding more. Let's see. What are the tokens we like? Obviously, Solana, Serum. Let's go with Radium as well. I want to add these tokens to the fund's portfolio, meaning that now I can trade the initial capital within the fund, within these assets. So while these are being created, let me quickly show you how an investor would look at the fund. So they would look at the fund and they would see, let me quickly open my previous fund that's called BEF-JSOS. And they would see, OK, this fund is performing positively. This is the strategy that they're using. This is their asset composition. I would want to invest in this. So it's just a one-click invest. You choose the amount of dollars you want to invest. Let's say $200 into BEF-JSOS, and I click deposit. I approve the transaction. And I mean, what now happens that I'm getting a specific share of the fund while all my deposited dollars follow the composition of the fund. So that fund currently has Sol, Serum, Ray, Cope, and Mango in the respective distributions. OK, let's now quickly go back and see, as a fund manager, what I'm here able to do. So currently, Solrise is built in a generic fashion, where, as I previously said, we want to allow fund managers to have all the tools that they would use in their day-to-day trading activities. We initially started with just integrating with the Serum DEX and Radium. So we are able to use Serum Swap and Radium Swap to manage your assets. So currently, this fund has 300 unallocated dollars. Let's maybe buy some Sol and arrange the portfolio in that sense. Let's say $200. So you might see this balance of $300 will reduce by 200, and my balance of Sol will increase in the respective value. This all in the back end happens through using Radium Swap. You might now think that, OK, but this is only swap. I, as a fund manager, need many other things, and this is exactly what's on our roadmap. We're planning to add a more direct integration with Serum DEX in terms of long-standing buy and sell orders. This is actually one of the biggest requirements on similar protocols on other chains. You just cannot have a long-standing buy or sell order on Ethereum because, you know, stuff. The other things we want to add is different protocols. We want to add borrow lending. We'll be adding perps, futures, options, and all the fun stuff. So you see that my, as a manager of the BEF-JSOS fund, my USDC balance decreased, and I've bought in some Solana. Currently, we have a trading competition running, and basically people that want to manage their funds or basically create a track record before we unleash our platform to the wider masses can enroll, and they can create their own fund and manage their assets. All the competition is incentivized by our own native token called Solrise. For managers, on the other hand, OK, so let's then go quickly to the exit flow. OK, so now your manager has made a profit. You want to exit an investment. The exiting of the investment flow is pretty easy as well. You just go to the fund, and then you click exit. You choose which of the accounts that you previously created or which investment account you want to exit. And you might notice an interesting thing here, and that is that we do not measure the performance of the whole pool of assets, because that's what we determine that big investment funds have a problem with. Because if you enter or exit at specific time periods when fund managers are claiming their performance, that you might miss out on some of the profits. So we individually track investments and only charge fees on the realized profit of a single investment, which I think is a game changer. So let me choose this $100 investment that I made and then exit it. I'm going to click through some steps because these are pretty complex transactions. I get a very big screen saying that my initial investment, my current value, OK, I'm at a loss. We didn't plan for this. We could have maybe had Solana pump a bit, so we could demo this better. But it calculates the exit fees, the performance fees, and the total amount that I'm going to receive. I click Next. There are a few transactions that need confirmation. And actually, when I exit, there are two types of fees, exit fees and performance fees. Exit fees depend on how long you stayed in the fund, and performance fees are only on the realized profits. I won't go much into depth on how the 3 steps of the exit fees works, but I'm happy to catch up later if anyone wants to know more. So the final step is actually withdrawing all of these assets in the proportion that I had them to my treasury. I click Withdraw to Treasury, and then, OK, sometimes RPC fails. Maybe not. But ultimately, when I fully exit that fund, I'm able to go in my treasury and see all my assets that I've withdrawn from the platform. We created this treasury mechanism as like a separate vault on our platform, so people can in an easier fashion track their overall profits. What I can do, let me try one more time here. Withdrawing to treasury. OK. Yeah, sorry, RPC happens. So one more thing that I didn't mention. We also have a staking mechanism. And staking mechanism is something that we wanted to create that and incentivize people to have and lock our token. So when you stake the token, you are able to realize discounts across the whole platform. So we have a tiered structure of staking accounts, and the more you stake, the more discounts you can get while you're exiting the fund, for example. Or the more discounts you can get as a manager, that less of the performance fee cut gets taken from you, basically. I would wrap it up there. I got more stuff to show, but the timer's ticking.
Cool. Thanks, Fedor. That was awesome. Live demos are never easy, so great work. Can you walk us through a little bit how Solrise plans on sort of integrating with other Solana protocols?
Yes, absolutely. I mentioned this partially, but we built our platform in a very generic way, meaning that it can facilitate the transactions through other protocols. So currently, if you go to the Serum DEX, you are trading on your behalf. But in our case, you would be trading on the behalf of an investment fund, so it stays fully non-custodial. And we also have checks that it sees that your funds won't go into like a improperly balanced liquidity pool, for example. Also, this allows very easy integrations with other protocols like perps, futures, and whatever else I mentioned.
Awesome. As he said, go find him afterwards if you have any more questions. Also a great person to buy free coffee for. Thanks, Fedor.
Thanks, guys.
All right. And next up, we have not one, but 2 builders and presenters, Cindy and Z from Drift Protocol. Do you want to kick it away? Cool.
Yeah, sorry, just checking this thing is on. We're Cindy and Z. We're both co-founders of Drift Protocol. We're building on-chain perpetual swaps on Solana. And we use a pretty novel dynamic AMM model that couples and builds on virtual AMM on past ETH iterations like perpetual protocol, bringing it fully decentralized on Solana and giving traders the best execution price possible. So today we'll be going through just a quick introduction on who we are and where we're at. We recently just launched on an alpha mainnet, so it's still closed. You need an NFT ticket to trade, so if you need one and want to trade perps with 5x leverage on Solana, let us know after this and we'll send you an NFT. And yeah, we're fully cross-margin as well. So all of your positions within a collateral pool are tradable against each other. Your P&L from one position covers P&L everywhere, making the experience more capital efficient. So yeah, we're really focused on bringing a fully transparent, highly liquid experience with low slippage and best execution price for traders. And we're backed by Multicoin, Jump Capital, Alameda, Robot, and a bunch of the greatest trading desks in the space. So super excited to present our product here today. So we'll be quickly walking through what we want to do. I'll let Z take over, and I'll be controlling the screen.
Yeah. Hi. So Cindy's going to be showing you guys a live demo, and I can just kind of talk through kind of the set of features that you can do on a virtual AMM for perp trading. So you can see right now in our closed mainnet, there's a cap on deposits. I guess we're going to deposit the max amount. You just approve the transaction. Super low fees. Thank you, Solana. So now we have 10K in our margin account. This is just the collateral used for deciding how much of a position that you can take in this market. Yeah, so why don't we can see in the market, right? This is the SOL market. And since this is a virtual AMM, we have both a mark price and we use a reference index price coming from Pyth just to help with the price discovery process. You can see there's a predicted funding rate, and as you hover over, it describes kind of what all these things mean when you're doing the perp trading. So yeah, we see the funding rate is on the hour. It's ticking down 34 minutes until the top of the hour. We show that number as an APR as well, just for comparable reference. Right now, this means that longs are receiving near over 100% annualized rate for holding a long. Sounds great. You see other market statistics, right? The open interest in the market counted in the base asset amount, which is SOL, and the 24-hour volume in the quote amount, which is USDC. Yeah. So why don't you talk about for the trade that you're going to book?
Yeah. So I'm just going to be a regular trader logging onto this exchange, taking a trade. So right now, it looks like our mark price is below index price, and we're getting paid to long SOL. And when is it not good to long SOL, right? So let's do some quick TA. We have a TradingView integration where you can not a TA expert, but if, you can draw some lines out there to inform your trading strategy whatever you guys like doing. This looks like SOL just dumped a little bit, so I'm gonna take a long. I think it's gonna go back up. Not financial advice. So I'm gonna talk through the trading tab a little bit here. So in the future, when we have more markets, you'll be able to select different markets to trade perps on. So right now we have SOL. In the future, we're gonna have BTC, ETH, and a bunch of different DeFi assets on Solana, as well as outside of Solana. With this, you can see the estimated entry price that you'll get in. So this also goes to show with a VMM, the exact price that you're going to get in without any worry about liquidity being pulled. And from there, you can also adjust what size of the position you want to take. So you can easily type it in. It reflects in the position slider. And then one thing you can do here as well, which is really interesting, is that you can select the max leverage that you want to put on your trade. So let's say you're really, you want to take a big risk on this trade, and you want to go max long 5x, which is what we allow right now. And select that, and feel free to do whatever you want. But today we're going to be a little bit more risk averse and take a 2x long. So here it shows what slippage tolerance you're willing to take on your trade. So if you need to execute at a tight range, you can effectively simulate immediate or cancel limit orders that make sure that you don't get filled if price moves too fast while you're trying to execute a trade. So yeah, we're just going to quickly take a small position. And I'm going to show you guys, and maybe Z can talk through all these things here just to make sure you're familiar. Yeah.
Yeah, so right before you confirm the trade, it'll tell you both the size that you're going to receive, the entry price that you're expected at, given that it's fully transparent virtual AMM, The slippage tolerance that you selected, we just selected infinite. And then the estimated slippage, which is purely, you can calculate beforehand. So yeah, and then also because we're over collateralized on this trade, there is no liquidation price. So I guess we can just go along.
I'm sure everyone's excited to see what the P&L is going to be in a couple minutes. But yeah, we're going to wait for the market to move a little bit before. Oh, we made 6 cents in profit, which is great. So yeah, just going to wait for the market to sort of pick up, and we can also demo closing a position or taking an additional taking any additional positions, which adds on or decreases your position.
We can also show like the trade history.
Yep.
And stuff.
So
yeah, so you can see at the bottom you have your position. You can see your trade history, right? So if you have a bunch of trades, you can see all the trades that you booked, which are like the individual lots. There's also liquidations if you have been liquidated. We do have partial liquidations, which is very favorable. It's kind of like an automatic stop loss on trading. And then the funding history, if you're holding a position for a long time, you'll be realizing the funding payment that we talked about earlier.
Yep, so all this information helps inform your trading history and lets you know what happened in the back end. We're also building a portfolio page where you can see all the trades that you've done, all your P&L over time, and yeah, that should be released pretty soon. So excited to show it to you when it's live. So now I'm going to show how we close out a position. We initially built it so that you can close it out on the left side as well. So you can either take a opposing short position and close out the $500 that you had long. But in this case, we wanted to make it more convenient for users to be able to just close their position on the trading tab. So here you can see if you want to close out like half of your position or the whole thing. Let's see what it looks like when you want to close out half. Yeah, so your size just decreased from $500 notional to $250, and your P&L of 40 cents was realized, and the rest is in an open position now. Yeah, so that's pretty much the trading experience on Drift. Yeah, anything you want to add about idiosyncrasies of EMM?
Yeah, so we recently released docs and lots of other things. So that people can build integrations on top of Drift. So we're super excited to see what the community builds and just inspects.
Yeah, so the really cool thing about going open source and having a live SDK is that you guys can build trading bots that either ARP funding rates or take directional trades, or also build liquidator bots. Liquidators get a reward of collateral for users that get liquidated. Obviously, we're really risk averse today, but if a user was to be liquidated, we have a keeper network of liquidators who secure the network and receive rewards for securing the network. So this is all open source, and anyone can participate in it. So if you're a trader, builder, liquidator, you're welcome on Drift.
Cool. Awesome. That was really good. Bring your laptop up here a second. I find this fascinating and have a million questions, but in the interest of fairness, I'm only allowed to ask one. So let's move up just a little bit. You're using a VAMM. Can you walk me through how it differs from an order book, maybe?
Yeah. So VMM, you have 0 spreads on your trades. You only have slippage, so it's pure trader against trader. Whereas in an order book, you have market makers that take a bid ask, that give you a bid ask, and you fill it at the prices that they offer. With a VMM, each trade pushes the price up of the curve on a curve that we've set out, and the trading happens much more organically. So it's like, we call it the most elegant P2P trading solution out there. And we also think it's a lot more capital efficient because every single trade accounts for volume on the platform rather than being locked in an order book. And yeah, that enables all of the fees to go back into our platform rather than being given to external market makers.
Cool. I will come find you guys later because I have a million more questions.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Yeah. Anyone wants an NFT, let us know.
Cool. I just wanted to take a second to thank all the presenters today. It's not easy to come up here and present in front of a crowd and a live stream around the world. So thank you. And yeah, let me know if you have any questions.
I think it's especially exciting to see the actual teams who built the product present their demos, because they all know these little details as well as they share the amazing energy with you. But regulators, lawmakers, policymakers, they can stifle or boost an entire class of technology. And the question around cryptocurrency regulation is growing increasingly urgent for millions of users who want to access the permissionless finance. So our next panel will examine the issues on that front with an amazing moderator, Jed Halfon from Solana Labs, and our guests is Greg X. Atalis from Multicoin and Michelle Bond from the Capital, Maker Capital. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, Albertina. Hello, everyone. Really excited to be here. I think it's been an incredible few days. If you can't tell by my voice, it's been invigorating, energizing. I think it's easy to forget that most of the devs here and all of the activity on Solana has happened in the last 6 to 12 months. So there's a really unique energy that's really new and really fresh and really exciting. So just really grateful to be here with you all. I'm here with Greg Exathalis, who is the GC of Multicoin, and Michelle Bond, who is the CEO of Atom, which is one of the most prominent crypto advocacy firms in DC. And we're hoping to chat about a topic we're trying to find clarity in crypto. And I think for those paying attention, a lot of regulators recently have been suggesting that there is clarity and that market participants are getting it wrong. But I think, as we'll see today, there's actually a lack of clarity, and they're really interesting questions that lawyers and builders like yourselves are really pushing the boundaries on. So before we dive in, maybe Michelle, you could just tell us a little bit about your background and a little bit about the work that Atom is doing.
Yeah, certainly. So first, I am so thrilled to be here in Lisbon. How amazing. And this is the most beautiful venue I've ever spoken at, so thank you. My name is Michelle. As Jed mentioned, I am the CEO of the Association for Digital Asset Markets, and we are a Washington, D.C.-based trade association. We are not a registered lobbying association. What we do is standard setting for the industry. So we have a code of conduct, and we do heavily work on policy. So we work very closely with the U.S. government and on a variety of different initiatives. A little bit about my background. I've spent my whole career in policy. I'm also a lawyer, like my esteemed panelists here. I practiced law, but I was on the Senate Banking Committee, and I wrote portions of the Dodd-Frank Act and the Jobs Act, and then I went to the SEC, and I was a lawyer for the SEC. Thank you. It's really annoying. Thank you. I was a lawyer for the SEC, and I wrote regulations. We wrote the cross-border derivatives rules, and then I ran regulatory affairs for Bloomberg. And honestly, a lot of people it's very funny because a lot of people are like, well, what is Bloomberg? Bloomberg was fintech from the 1980s. There is actually some history for fintech. And obviously, Bloomberg, it was a very interesting time because the company was largely becoming regulated. And I think that is actually, it paves the way for kind of like what we're doing now in the more modern fintech space, because obviously we're starting to see a ton of regulation, and there's a lot of history there. And anyway, so it's a very exciting space. And go ahead, Greg.
Yeah, I'm Greg Exathalis. I'm the General Counsel and Chief Compliance Officer at Multicoin Capital.
which is a thesis-driven investment firm that invests across the digital asset spectrum, Web3, open finance, and we have a little bit of an interest in the Solana ecosystem, I believe. Yeah, my background, I started working as a lawyer about 16 years ago, but at the end of 2012, I got into crypto through being hired to do the first Bitcoin ETF, or at least try to. And at the time, it was really a blank slate for crypto. And the evolution of regulation in the space has moved forward a very, very long way. There was literally nothing on paper in 2012. We've advanced quite a long way, particularly in addressing Bitcoin, but also some other elements of the ecosystem. My work with crypto companies slowly evolved from being a small portion of my practice to being a large portion, and representing centralized institutions, both legacy financial institutions and emergent crypto institutions like custodians, exchanges, asset managers. And this past July, I joined Multicoin, and really excited to work with my comrades in the space, as well as our team and our portfolio companies on trying to find clarity. And I just do want to note before I throw it back to you, Jed, thank you to you, to Anatoly, to Raj. This is an amazing conference, and it's amazing what Solana has built over the course of the last 3 years, but particularly over the course of the last year and this, and even a live stream. My 2-year-old daughter is watching me right now at home in New York, so hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
Hi, Emma.
It's great to meet you.
Amazing. So Greg, as you know, I want to set the stage a bit. We're here, we're in Europe, we're in Lisbon. We have colleagues from the US, we have colleagues from abroad. Crypto lawyers often think in a very US-centric way. How should projects, developers be thinking about orienting themselves and worrying about US regulations as opposed to various international ones?
So one of the best lawyers in the space, who's a friend to all three of us, a guy named Lewis Cohen at DLX Law, has a saying that cracks me up every time I hear it, which is, they got laws there too. And it's an important reminder, but it also is reflective of the fact that there is importance to the focus on US law for a couple of reasons. One, they actually have been further out in acting, not always in providing clarity, but in acting. And one of the reasons for that also is they have a broader concept of what's known as extraterritorial jurisdiction, which means that wherever you are in the world, if you are engaging in business within the US, they will have the potential, and often do, try to bring you within the regulatory ambit of US law and how it's applied, and particularly with enforcement. We have seen that with a number of crypto companies that were entirely offshore but serviced US customers. Traditionally in the centralized CeFi space, but we're also seeing increasing focus on the DeFi space. So there's importance there. There's also an element of the US tends to set a higher bar, but that by no means is to imply that we don't have to keep a global focus, because that's what this technology is. At its base layer, at the protocol layer, we're talking about something that can be accessed in a permissionless way in some cases. Not all blockchains are permissionless, but in what we're talking about today is permissionless systems where there are no borders, and where there are also actually very interesting conversations to be had about what is the jurisdiction, where does a transaction take place when it's movement on a blockchain.
And I would actually add to that, the regulators are all part of these international regulatory bodies. So there's the Financial Stability Board, and there's IOSCO, which is I think it has 180 securities commissions in it. So all these regulators are all talking with one another. So even if someone thinks they're in one jurisdiction or that jurisdiction's not applicable, they're all talking, and they're very closely coordinated. The other thing I would also mention is a lot of projects think, okay, well, you know what? I'm not in the US, but they might have a server in the US or some data or something. Be really careful with that, because I have seen the regulators look to, claim jurisdiction and, US territoriality because of that server or whatever the case may be. So it is very, very important that if you're not in the US, you're completely out of the US.
I totally agree, and I think it's easy to forget that the SEC and OFAC's jurisdiction is so broad that given the way crypto moves, these projects moves, if they want to go after you, they will almost always have jurisdiction over you or your project, even if you're super airtight about watching out for servers and having boots on the ground in the US. It's really a broad mandate. You know, I think there's a narrative in crypto that we're going to lose the war for crypto supremacy in the US, and that we're having this big brain drain and this talent move offshore. You know, do you think regulators are thinking like that, Michelle? Are they looking at this as this great missed opportunity, or are we in a bubble? Are the crypto Twitter folks in a bubble when it comes to thinking about this opportunity?
I think the regulators really do care. I mean, let me put it this way. If the regulators in the US wanted to stamp out crypto, that would have happened. And that would have happened a long time ago. That has not happened. And what we're seeing is it's a difficult adjustment, but what they're working on is a way to adapt. And I think that's a really positive and great sign. However, I think there's like obviously there's a big learning curve there. So there's a lot of work that has to be done. But I do think that, look, from a policymaker standpoint, they see jobs, they see innovation. We can be obviously a technology leader, and they also see an expanded tax base. So, I mean, you know, I don't think it was lost on anyone here what just happened with the infrastructure bill. There was a really harmful crypto provision in it. That's going to bring a lot of money into the federal government. So that's actually, you know, from a government standpoint, I think, you know, I think a lot of regulators would probably view that as a very positive thing. So it's just a balancing test. I mean, you know, they also want to make sure that they have appropriate regulation in place.
And I think the longer crypto survives, the more obvious those benefits are going to be. And we just have to keep going and keep lasting. You know, Greg, one complaint I get from everyone, all the developers I get to chat with, is like, where do I focus my attention? Because every day there seems to be a new speech from a regulator, guidance out of FATF, an infrastructure bill, IRS stuff. It's really overwhelming. And you know, what do you think is the single biggest risk from this alphabet soup? What is the biggest thing that could impact developers and the industry?
So since I am on the home continent, I will use a quote my father, who's Greek, told me, which is from Heraclitus, "Ta pantare," which is the stream always flows. And the concept is when you step in a stream, it's never actually the same stream because the water has changed it. Oftentimes, that's what it feels like to be a lawyer in crypto, and I'm sure it's the same for devs. But when you're thinking about what the first steps are, well, there's a lot. I mean, you've got to focus on code and product, because if you don't have the code, you don't have the product, you know, nothing's going to go anywhere. So that has to be the first focus. But what doesn't get lost on that, or what should not get lost on that, is the importance of understanding the implications of code decisions. So it doesn't necessarily have to be a lawyer, although it's always great to talk to a lawyer. Unfortunately, there aren't that many of us who are really ingrained in the crypto space. But you need to have advice to understand what you're building and how it is implicated in various regulatory regimes. You can start with thinking about the US, but you also need to think particularly about home jurisdictions, and you in particular also need to think about tax implications when you're doing things, because this is a major issue that some projects don't think enough on, and it's very hard to roll back a foot fault on tax. We've seen that with a lot of projects since 2014, 2015, where there were serious tax issues. But it's a very lawyer thing to say, but it depends, because it is going to be subject to what you're building. The questions that a protocol layer has are going to be very different from the great folks at Drift who are up here before us. And you need to have conversations with people who have worked through this before and who can give you a sense and some guidance, because if you identify those issues while you're still building, and maybe you've already released a testnet, but before you go mainnet or before you exit, you know, beta, you want to have thought about these things to issue spot and then identify fixes.
Michelle, do you think there's one non-dependent risk from all of this alphabet soup that keeps you up at night?
So, yeah, I mean, so one of the things that our group is focused on is, so Atom, we have a code of conduct, and what it does is it creates standards for market integrity in the crypto spot market. So that's something that the industry has developed on its own, which is awesome. Like, that's exactly the role that you want to see industry playing. And it's very loose. Our code is very loosely modeled off of the global FX code. And to be honest with you, so all of our members agree to adhere. Multicoin is a member, FTX, we have a lot of members here. But like, that's a great role for industry to be playing, as opposed to, just always having the federal government lead. And one of the things that I would hope, doesn't happen is for industry to sort of like get shut out of the regulatory and like the policy making conversations. And I wouldn't want to see, like, for example, just the SEC and the CFTC just bringing enforcement action after enforcement action. I think it would be really helpful for the industry to be working on standards. And to that end, one of the things that I would personally like to see is a self-regulatory organization, such that perhaps we would not have just the SEC and the CFTC. Like, there could be an SRO that's dedicated to digital asset markets, and that would be sort of like an industry-led, sort of solution, the same way we have FINRA on the securities and broker-dealer side, and the NFA on the future side. So that's something that is at least, under discussion, at least in DC right now, for policy. But otherwise, I think the alternative, at least if it's just going to be enforcement only, I think that keeps me up at night. Yeah.
I think one of the biggest critiques we hear about self-regulation is that it's always pretty loose, and that if the industry insiders get together, they're not going to have the best interests of the public. Are you concerned about that perception? And second, there's a lot of worry that by voluntarily disclosing things, if you're a project, if you're a dev, you're actually giving a regulator more material to work with to go after you. So there's perverse incentives in many ways in self-regulation.
So look, I mean, self-regulation has been around for a very long time. There was the Maloney Act Amendment in 1938, which basically allowed for national securities associations, and that's what created the NASD, which is FINRA now. So we have a lot of precedent on creating these things. Digital assets are new, so it would take an act of Congress, some legislative text. Maybe we'll see some soon. But in any event, like, I think that this is a real possibility, and I think it would get bipartisan support. So a lot of the criticisms, I actually think, would not really apply here. I mean, if you look at what Atom is doing with our code of conduct and setting the standards, our regulation at Atom is actually higher than anything the regulators have put out themselves. So like, we have principles in existence that really don't exist anywhere, and that's something that the industry has taken initiative, and they said, look, we have the responsibility to do this ourselves. We have the expertise, we have the responsibility, and that's what our members have really done. And then on the other side of that, it is nice for it to be industry, like I said. So I think there's definitely there could be some really great bipartisanship in this, and then as far as disclosure goes, we have in the U.S., we do not have a merit-based regime like other countries. In the U.S., we have a disclosure-based regime, and as long as you're disclosing, whatever the items are that would be required, and putting the information out to the public without any bearing on whether it's whether an investor likes it or doesn't like it or anything like that, as long as it's truthful, that's what our law requires in the U.S. at least. Other jurisdictions have other things, and you probably have other things to add to this too, Jed. And I bet you have lots to say on this.
Yeah, Greg, would you encourage devs in your portfolio to make voluntary disclosures about anything from code to token holdings to company makeup? I think this is a hot topic now.
It is a hot topic, and I think we should level set that to the extent we have an act of Congress that establishes an SRO, it will be a framework for disclosure that's included in that, which should at least provide some comfort that if you are giving disclosures, it's within an ordered system where you should not be exposed to additional liability for being transparent. But transparency is also an important point for regulators to understand and for the industry to really promote, is that in many ways what all of you are building in open finance and Web3, it does challenge the way regulators have previously operated in the US in particular, but also globally, which is they identify a central party, an intermediary who is capable of seeing the state of play and the entire field level, and is capable of identifying when things that are bad happen. And that's why we have brokers as core regulators, why we have clearing parties as core regulators, why we have banks and money transmitters as core regulated parties, because that's where the data lies, the visibility lies. That's not the way blockchains work. Now, there may be intermediaries, whether centralized or otherwise, that interact with blockchains, but we have a data set, and for something that's truly native, it's a near perfect data set. Now, that won't always cover everything, like who owns what token deals have been made as far as lockups or things like that, what developments may be coming on a GitHub, but you do have a native, generally speaking, transparent set of data, which in and of itself can be a tremendous tool for regulation, and one that frees us from a system that relies on trying to impose burdens and obligations on parties that are ill-suited within this technology to actually assume those roles.
I also think that the typical disclosures that you would expect don't matter. So if I go to a DEX or a borrow-lend protocol, I don't need the financials of the company that originally created that software. Or I might care much less about the founder's token holdings if the project has been out for 2 or 3 years. So I think there's an issue with the structure of a disclosure-based regime. And I think between GameStop and the meme coins, I think the idea of a disclosure-based regime is being called into question because the crowd doesn't care. You don't need a disclosure to trade Shiba Inu, right? This is just a new form of speculation, and I think shoehorning in an old disclosure-based regime is not quite going to get the investors the protection that regulators would seem to suggest it would.
And that's especially true when we think about truly decentralized projects, where you don't have singular parties who are controlling, and under those circumstances, you may have certain areas where disclosure might be appropriate if there is a core group of individuals who are driving the bus on a project. But when you've achieved the mythical decentralization that is rather ill-defined, that also changes the appropriateness of requiring a party to make disclosures.
Completely. And we're slowly running out of time, but I want to stick on sufficient decentralization because if we go back to the question earlier, I think I'm in the minority, but I still think that the SEC is the single greatest threat to crypto over the next 2 years. I think the battles over stablecoins and the laws that might come out of the FATF guidance, those are the biggest battles that the industry will face. But in crypto, 2-3 years out might as well be an eternity. Mm-hmm. And so I think the question of sufficient decentralization, which is really the guidepost that most crypto projects are reaching to, stemming back to the Bill Hinman speech, which said that Ethereum was no longer considered a security because the network had reached sufficient decentralization. That's still what most projects have to work with. So, Michelle, do you think regulators and government officials see this as a utopia? What do they think when they hear a sufficiently decentralized network?
So it's funny because the context means everything, right? So for securities laws, like decentralization is like really important, and that's like a good thing that anyone would want to achieve, because once something, as you said from the Hinman speech, once something is sufficiently decentralized, then that makes it much less likely to be deemed to be a security, right? And if something's a security, then there's a whole host of regulation that comes along with that, and anything touching it has to be a broker-dealer, and there's suitability and like all kinds of issues, and then of course it's SEC regulated. so there's the decentralization on like the securities law sort of like definitional question, but then there's also decentralization in terms of like the way the government sort of like more broadly looks at this space. And I really think it goes back to what Greg was just saying. It's like, these regulators are used to regulating intermediaries, and that's always been sort of the hook. It's like, who's the person? Who's the person? Who am I going to get the information from? And I think it's a really scary thing, and it's just now getting like the government's now just starting to talk about it. But the more that the federal government feels like they can't get access to information, they don't know who to go to, and like obviously there are privacy and like all kinds of issues. I think it's a scary thing, and obviously they're worried about retail investors getting hurt, but like there's so much more that they're worried about. So I think like as this like notion of decentralization gets like even bigger, I think that the government's going to view this as maybe not necessarily a good thing, and they're going to want to look for ways to like not necessarily stop it, but they're going to have to figure out something to do with this. So
I think the best projects on Solana and the projects that have the best legal strategy when they go to market structure their business and their protocol so they are not an intermediary.
Yeah.
So I think Serum and Metaplex are the two best examples of this. And I think we're going to see a lot more projects follow this model where when you go to Metaplex, there's actually no product, right? It's a back-end and front-end reference implementation. It's a tool. Yes. And I think people in crypto would do well to stop thinking as things as protocols, but as widgets or tools. And these tools are truly legally agnostic. And you can use it to run an NFT drop that's fully compliant, and you can use it to sell a security, but it doesn't really matter. And it really gives the users the ability to do whatever they want with the product, to grow exponentially, like we've seen with all the NFT drops on Metaplex. And again, same with Serum. This is a marketplace, and depending on how you structure it, who you block, who you include, what you sell, you can have all types of markets, and these tools have really proliferated. So I think it's important for builders to really think of themselves as trying to get away from being that intermediary and letting people run with it.
Yeah, you don't operate the tool that you're building, you put it out for others to operate. And part of that goes to this issue of what are some of the other areas that decentralization means. And one of them is, do you actually control the tool? And that's on an active basis. Can you gate who accesses it? Can you force people off the system? In the concept of probably the most fleshed out decentralization in the US concept comes from money services laws, where you're an administrator of a token network or a convertible virtual currency network if you have the ability to either forcibly redeem someone, to force someone to transfer assets, or if you have the ability also to control the consensus around it, how it actually functions, or the upgrades or updates to the software or to the smart contract, which is why one of the most important things that new development teams have to be thinking about is if they're launching something that's smart contract based, what are they doing with administration keys? How are they structuring governance voting? And on multi-sigs in particular, understanding that it can be complicating to have a sufficient and necessary number of keys within the house of the development team, because suddenly that can turn you into an administrator theoretically, even if you have governance votes, if they're still contingent upon the multi-sig holders acting.
Someone really smart on Capitol Hill who works a lot on crypto issues said to me, I thought it was great. He said, if there's a kill switch, it's centralized. And I was like, that's probably a good rule of thumb.
I think it's 100% the case, and a problem I see is that projects don't prioritize it from the get-go. And if you think you're going to run a centralized business for 18 months and then give away some light decision-making about fees or parameters to the community, it's going to be a really uphill battle for you to get to that meaningful decentralization. And the teams that prioritize it out the gate and think about pushing out control, not having the admin key, I think are going to put themselves in a much better position. We only have 2 minutes left, Michelle, but I know you've been working on some pretty exciting things on the Hill. Would love to maybe get a preview from what you can share about kind of what's coming next.
Yeah, so certainly. I think we should expect a flurry of legislation coming out of Capitol Hill. I think all the focus is on our issues, guys. So I'm really busy. I can promise you that we're going to be very, very, very busy in the coming months and at least 1 year. So I think the legislation is going to focus on a variety of areas. We'll see stuff on self-regulation, consumer protection. We'll see some things on the custody side. But I can assure you the lawmakers are working hard on this right now.
Would there be changes to the infrastructure bill, or is this new surface area?
Okay, lots of new, but the Wyden-Lummis-Toomey amendment is not dead, okay? We are still working on that, and that will we're looking to attach that to something else as well. So stay tuned. That needs to pass. So.
Amazing. And Greg, what about on the ETF front? As the Bitcoin ETF OG,
yeah,
are we going to see a spot?
Well, what I first want to just comment is that it is a nice thing to remember that although sometimes regulation in crypto seems very antagonistic, there are a lot of people in regulatory and legislative centers around the globe who are very enthused about this space and who are working hard both to understand it and try to get it right. And oftentimes, some of the regulation that we view as bad is actually not it's not ill-intentioned. They're trying to do their job, but they just don't either get it from a technical level or they don't share the same ideologies that we have. On a Bitcoin ETF, that's actually one of the areas where I think they are trying to do their job and they're getting it wrong. There should be a spot Bitcoin ETF. It's a better product. It's a simpler product. It's a safer and more investor-protected product. There's one of the spot Bitcoin ETPs that's coming up for its final review this week. I'm not optimistic about that, but I am optimistic about 2022 because it's time.
Amazing. Thank you guys so much. We'll be around for the next bit. If anyone wants to chat, you guys were a great panel. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Michelle, Greg, thank you so much for amazing panel. So many useful advices around this controversial world of crypto regulation. So thank you so much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And we are switching our focus to crypto games. Crypto games blaze the clear path that allows users play to earn. This bilateral commercial relationship between the game designer and the player underlies crypto's ability to more efficiently transform time into money, both for creators and for users. Our next session will look at bootstrapping the superpowers that play to earn unlocks. Please welcome to the stage David Tuxon from Reciprocal Ventures and Jonathan Choi from Metaplex Studios.
All right, thanks for coming, everyone. And we have a really exciting talk. I'm David from Reciprocal Ventures. I work on the crypto investments team. We're one of the seed investors in Solana, so we've been waiting for this moment for quite some time that developers are now building for gaming. And I also want to give a shout out to Penguin, who made this really cool SMB hoodie. And so a shout out to fellow Monkey DAO members out there. So here are our two really good panelists. Some of the best people in gaming and NFTs are right here, and I'll let them introduce themselves.
Hi, my name is Dan Din. I am one of the co-founders of TSM. If you guys have been following like FTX and their sponsorship, we got sponsored at the end of June, July, and they've really been pulling me into like the crypto space. And so talk a little bit about more later, but we're also starting a crypto gaming studio.
I'm Jonathan Choi. I'm the CIO and head of partnerships at Metaplex Studios. And as many of you may know, Metaplex is the NFT initiative from Solana.
All right, nice. So I guess play to earn has become this topic that everybody knows now, even some people that don't pay attention to crypto. So Axie Infinity took off, and now people realize like this is the way that you can have millions of users actually using the blockchain. And so I'm kind of curious what you guys think play to earn is and will eventually become, and I'll let you guys discuss.
Yeah, I'll start off in this one. I think for me at a high level, I want to break down play to earn into two parts, right? What is play and what is earn? For me, play is like what you do like that's intrinsically motivated for fun or recreation or pleasure. And on the other end, earn, like, hey, how do you turn that recreational behavior into an avenue or a way in which you can make additional money or make a living out of? And as I think about this, is at a high level, the earn is a way of being like using crypto or the blockchain to efficiently move assets around or things that you earn or you achieve in game, either to transfer efficiently from a player to another player or offloading it onto another chain and just selling a token that represents what you work for.
Well, to not add to that, but a fun anecdote, one of our VIP partners, Nyan Heroes, like to say that not play to earn, but play and earn, and that shouldn't be motivated by earning something to play, but rather, why don't you play and have fun and earn at the same time? So
exactly, just like
topic.
Yeah, following up on that, it's like my ethos on play to earn isn't, hey, your sole goal of this game isn't to like, hey, I'm gonna jump in. These are the core loops that I kind of just do every single day to earn a token that then I offset and unload it to somebody else. It should be like, hey, I'm playing this game. I've put years of time into it. I've unlocked certain achievements. I've earned certain things, and right now, the way it works is you play a game, you earn assets in game. When the game dies, your asset dies with you, or dies with the game. And how do you retain those achievements? How do you retain those items where you can at least show people like, hey, this is the work that I've done. This is the work that I've achieved. And so it's more of like, hey, play first for enjoyment and pleasure. The earn is just a representation of your achievement in the game.
Mm-hmm. So how is Solana uniquely suited to be like the chain that could be used for gaming, and do you have any thoughts behind that?
Yeah, I'd love to take that one. I mean, as we know, Solana is the fastest blockchain. So with gaming, the user experience is key. So having that is a big factor. And also it being the most cost efficient plays a big role in that. Well, gamers, will spend quite a lot if they're into the game. But at the end of the day, all the transactions within a game, whether they are related to currency or not, I think having Solana to power that is big.
Yeah, and I have a little bit of opinion to add to that too. Like when I first heard about Solana, it was about around early March, February, and I was looking at what blockchain has the highest capacity in terms of transaction per second. And I did my Google search and Solana popped up. And I was like, oh, that's amazing. And this was kind of when I started thinking, I was like, hey, well, let's answer why is transaction per second important? Because, or at least important to crypto and crypto gaming. When you're thinking about crypto gaming, there's just tons of actions that are happening all the time. And also the second thing is the cost of Solana is tremendously low. When you think about traditional gamers, most players when they buy a box game is $60. Maybe in a free-to-play transaction, they might spend $100 or $200 a year. On Solana versus other blockchains where maybe the gas fee is 600 or not 600, 60 to 200. It's not. I don't know the right word, but it doesn't really facilitate traditional gamers to onboard. So that's just initial opinions.
Let's not forget about scalability. Given that there are gamers all over the world, as important as TPS is, but I think scalability will play a big factor in onboarding the next billion gamers onto Solana. And one more thing, we can't forget Metaplex, the protocol. Although not Solana, I think having the protocol as a strategic partner allows gaming studios and gamers alike to leverage NFTs onto the blockchain for unlocking unique capabilities.
Yeah, just tacking on another thought is why uniquely Solana? When you think about onboarding players, as a player, how do you onboard a lot of people onto blockchain gaming, right? You want to remove as much friction as possible. right now there's no layer 2 solution to make it really, really easy for people to say, hey, I want to start playing a crypto game. Here's my credit card, here's my PayPal, and I'm ready to participate. And so people have to create a wallet, deposit onto like an exchange, move it to a wallet, then move it into whatever game it is. That friction that you have right there over time obviously is going to be solved, but you incur a lot of costs along the way when you do that. And on Solana specifically, that's trivially or minimal.
Yeah, so the CEO of Electronic Arts, EA, like recently said like the future of gaming that he believes is that play to earn. NFTs are going to be part of the games that EA and some of these AAA game studios will be building. So I'm kind of curious how you guys see NFTs evolving, since mostly right now people know NFTs as a profile picture, a JPEG, but I see much more utility, and especially occurring in gaming. So I'm kind of curious your thoughts on how NFTs will evolve over time and how they are in gaming.
Yeah. Well, I think like high level, right? When you think about traditional gaming, gamers are already native to like soft currency because there's like gold and riot points and combat points. And in game, there's already like digital assets. You're running around World of Warcraft and you're collecting your legendary staff or your epic, helmet. These things can all be represented in NFTs. These things that you earn, that you put in hundreds of hours or thousands of hours to grind. I think the special thing with NFTs is it's transferable. And I think there's a unique future in gaming and crypto gaming where, hey, how do you make these assets that you earn over time live and make it immutable on the blockchain, and how do you make it transfer from game to game? And I think like that's like a really, really interesting thing to think about.
Absolutely. And to add to that, I think the idea of ownership in that, well, a digital asset that you might purchase within the game, well, why keep it within the game or in another game? Why not bring it out to other utilities? And I think that's going to unlock a lot of creativity.
Exactly. I think like tacking on what you just said is you also unlock a second life to all these things that you spend money on. I've spent hundreds of dollars on my skins or like building up my character or building up my base. When the game dies, it disappears. And it allows you to offload that and bring it to another ecosystem or another universe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so with like play to earn, like regular people own the game. And do you ever see the point that a game could never die built on the blockchain, that these assets belong to the actual users and they're actually invested in it? There's also these DeFi economies built in that connect to real money. And do you ever envision a world that a game could actually live on for a decade or decades actually built on the blockchain?
I'm not sophisticated enough to understand like what component needs to be built on the blockchain for a game to live on, basically past a decade or past a century. But I know at least like the asset or the representation of your work that's done in the game can live on. You can create a symbolic layer of saying, hey, this NFT is a representation of that achievement, and you mint it, you put it on the blockchain, and when people look at that, it's like, oh, that's representative. Or like, let's just say like in World of Warcraft, you earned a Thunder Fury, and that Thunder Fury becomes an NFT. Now it's in your wallet, and when people see that Thunder Fury in your wallet, it's like, oh wow, to get that Thunder Fury, it took your guild thousands of raids, and I don't know how much resources to build it. And it's like that representation of achievement that's really important to me.
Yeah, so what's like the biggest challenges for developers to be onboarded to be building games that are actually crypto games? And so I've seen like some projects like Stardust, for example, are helping with the minting process of getting these indie game studios to AAA game studios to be able to actually have NFTs made for them and do it pretty easily. So I'm kind of curious what other challenges, or that being a challenge, and your thoughts around getting the developers to go into this Web3 journey with us.
After talking to many gaming studios in the past few months, I think one, it comes down to that the idea that there really isn't a big hurdle. I think the idea of Web3 may seem daunting at first, but those that are take the time to actually understand that it's not that much of a difference, and for those folks to interact with the Web3 community to learn that it can be an easy transition, I think that removes a lot. And after that, I think really flexing their creativity in whatever they like to do, I think Web3 just opens up a lot more doors. So I think, yeah, it's going to be, I think it's quickly shifting where now with also gaming studios like EA publicly saying that NFTs and blockchain are really it, we definitely expect a lot more gaming studios to come.
Yeah, I agree. And to add on a little bit, like as a new entrant to the space, I've gone through the process of like learning about crypto and like understanding it's like, hey, how should games be built on the blockchain? My initial thought is going in, oh, how do you build a complete game on the blockchain? And over time, I've actually like taken a step back and really realized is like, hey, what utility does a blockchain solves for a video game? You can still build a game the way it is, and then you say, hey, what is blockchain solving for this game? Is it because you need to market make an auction house and get like really like live pricing? Or how do you transfer like tokens on the game off chain? And so you don't have to build everything on game. And there's like an education process of like, hey, what game are you building? And where can you utilize the blockchain to solve for or enhance what you're currently doing?
Mm-hmm. Well, so when do you guys expect us to finally have like 1 million users, like daily active users on Solana? And have you guys ever thought about like when that timeline would happen? Or could it be next year or 2022? Or would that even be further?
I think it's going to happen very, very soon. As we know, games like Star Atlas, Aurora, and many others to follow are quickly building away. And I believe that once the Web2 community understands that these are AAA gaming titles or innovative games that just cannot be found in Web2, I believe the masses will come very soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think that I don't know how long it's going to be. I think for at least soon, because if you think about the pipeline, right, there's 200 to 500 games that's in the pipeline that's going to go, be blockchain gaming or blockchain gaming studios. And games inherently just have a lot of concurrent users because if you're not playing with anybody, it's not that fun. And my hope is that at least one of those 500 games is going to be a big hit with hundreds of thousands of concurrent. And if there's 2 big hits, it can be a lot more than that.
Mm-hmm. So Dan, so you have had like a really long career in like competitive esports gaming. Do you ever see like esports gaming tournaments will eventually align with like play to earn? Or I'm kind of curious of your thoughts around like competitive gaming and play to earn and some of those models.
Absolutely. I think like the way you can build like the system is you can make it so players at the top percentile can earn more than the bottom percentile. And as developer, you need to understand, it's like, hey, what's that percentage? What's that distribution? And you can naturally build in the incentive models for players to want to play your game and create the aspiration to get really good by incentivizing that earn model for players at the top. And I think that it could be an even more efficient model.
Mm-hmm. So what can we do better right now to be able to have like mass adoption right now? And what do you see as like the biggest hurdles and friction points?
For gaming and esports specifically?
Yeah, and that and elsewhere too.
I think like the first step is you need a reliable game that's proven out with a tremendous user base and an audience with a demand for viewership. Once you have a game that can actually be watched and has a lot of people watching, then esports naturally is going to come next. And it helps facilitate that if you think about it from the beginning. How do I build a game that is playable and viewable? I think those two are like really important first steps.
Okay.
To add to that, I believe the gaming community needs to understand better what is blockchain, what is crypto, what is NFT. I think we as a community here can do better in terms of sharing that knowledge and making it more intuitive, because once they understand, I think, again, the creativity will truly unlock, lead to better games, lead to more users, and mass adoption.
And I think the gaming community is ready, just because the gaming community innately understands soft currency. The gaming community innately understands digital assets. They've been buying soft currency and digital assets for years. It's just like, hey, how do you create ownership in these things outside of the game?
So do you have any thoughts why like mainstream adoption didn't happen sooner until like Axie, and it still hasn't gone to the point that like everyone in the world is playing like blockchain games, and why has mass adoption not occurred yet, but will?
Well, the biggest thing is you need a fun game. When I was describing play to earn earlier, I was describing play as an activity that you do for fun and pleasure. And so I think the next wave is when somebody cracks it and say, hey, this game is actually really fun. I would play it even if I don't earn, but it's a big plus that now I can earn as well.
Mm-hmm. I absolutely agree. Yeah, I don't really have much to add to that. I mean, it has to be fun. It has to be fun, and I think once that is there, whatever game mechanics, whatever in-game economics, whatever it may be, I think it just has to be fun first.
Yeah, I think the best developers hasn't seen what's the blockchain is capable of, and now they're starting to see. And so you're seeing a lot more energy devoted towards this side. And so we'll see something soon.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it seems like mass adoption in crypto has not come all from DeFi. Like, I still, for like Solana, the majority of the projects are DeFi projects. And like every single hackathon, like the DeFi category is where the majority of people are building. But the interesting thing is lately, even gaming has started to grow on Solana, and the Solana projects in the gaming category was even higher for his previous Ignition hackathon. And there seems to be a lot of people interested in play to earn now. And it seems like the strongest communities are like the NFT communities right now. So like the first group that had a DAO that's actually is going to have on-chain voting for Solana is like Monkey DAO and like the Fugbirds DAO. And it seems like the DAOs and communities are strongest in the NFT world. So do you see that happening with gaming when you mix these experiences in the gaming world with the NFT communities that seem to have some of the strongest communities in the blockchain world?
I missed the question, and so can you?
Yeah. So what are you expecting when you mix, I guess, NFT communities with gaming? And are you expecting these really impactful communities that are doing really interesting projects?
I think the idea of community becomes amplified in that, as we know, when it comes to NFT projects, drops, communities, you have X number of NFT holders that feel like they're part of something.
Got it.
A group, a tribe, a community. And then if that then translates into a game later, and others also come in.
That makes sense.
Well, now you're taking an existing community, amplifying it into a gaming community with more to come. I mean, at that point, anything's possible.
Yeah, I think I get your question now. I think coming from the traditional NFT space, the way I see that culture is when you buy an NFT or PFP, you're joining a community and you get really excited about that. It's about building community and building culture. And you see that in traditional gaming with esports teams and clans and guilds. And so I see a very, very natural crossover. And I think that once you introduce gaming to the blockchain, you'll naturally have those type of community. And that really, really strong culture building. And I think that is going to be a natural transition.
OK, nice. And so you've probably seen a lot of glitches or hacking in gaming. And so when you start to mix actual money with these games that are play to earn, do you envision any issues? And how can we prevent any malicious actors from gaming these play to earn games?
Yeah, I mean, I lose a lot of sleep on that question every single night, and I try and answer it. Because imagine you create a game where the core loop is basic enough where you can create thousands or hundreds of thousands of bots that really dilutes the experience of the game and really inflates the value of the currency, right? How do you combat that? My initial take to that is you do a lock on when you can cash out or take the token out. So you can vet, it's hey, what's the behavior of this wallet or this token holder? Is it a bot? But it becomes a little bit too centralized because now you're deciding it's hey, that guy is a bot, that guy is a hacker. And so those are things we're still trying to answer.
As big of a priority as to make the game fun, I think security, fraud, those kind of factors need to be considered from the get-go. Given that a lot of blockchain games are starting off as an NFT drop, as we know in the NFT world, there's a lot of bot issues. So to combat that from the very beginning, I think will ultimately lead to less to worry about when we're on the gaming side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we thought about like, hey, what does it look like if we KYC all of our user base? Would people flip their, or are people okay with that, right? And so there's a lot of things to balance and really figure out, what's the best route to combat this.
Yeah, definitely. And so what are you guys most excited about right now? And is there any games that are being built that you see as the future of gaming and you're really excited to get your hands on and play?
I think for me, I think about it back to like, hey, what does the early 2000 gaming landscape look like when it transitioned into mobile and then it transitioned to like free to play? I think what you're gonna see is a lot of like really basic arcade type games. When like the App Store started on the iPhone, it was just really like flick shooter. It was like Frogger types games, and so those are things that you can implement quickly, fill the gap short term, and then as you go, you push it down like to the 6 month, 1 year. You'll see more and more complex game, and I think it's about like funneling and pipelining. You need an array of different types of games and different complexity over time, and I think that it's nice to have the Star Atlas that's going to come out in 5 years. But you want a game that's going to come out in 3 years, in 2 years, in 1 year, in 6 months. And so when we have that pipeline filled out, I think the ecosystem is going to get really robust.
Mm-hmm.
I agree. I mean, I think everyone's excited for Star Atlas, but on the Metaplex side, we recently partnered with a gaming studio called Neon Heroes. So we're really excited about that project and that strong founders and NFT drops to start and a great game coming out later. But apart from that, I grew up a big time console gamer.
Yeah.
I think I've owned just about every console. And I can't wait to see Sony, Microsoft, Nintendo enter this space in their own way. And once they do, I think it's going to cement that blockchain game is here to stay.
Yeah, I think like more on that is I think like crossplay is really important. Right now, the most efficient or effective way is to do it on a browser, connect your wallet. But what type of games? There are certain types of games where you need to kind of focus all the time. Like for example, like a Clash of Clans. What if somebody attacks your base and you're not at your computer? How do you like defend against that? So I think like once you can get to mobile, to desktop, to console, where you can access your game, your wallet, your characters, then that's going to be a game changer.
So what type of game studio do you think is going to lead on the innovation front? Is it going to be like a AAA game studio, or is it going to be like a mid studio, or even an indie studio? I'm kind of curious, like who do you envision being at the forefront of bringing mass adoption?
I think that there's different segments to that question, right? I don't know how many people play like Candy Crush, but it's a relatively basic game that doesn't take a lot of time to develop. And there are ginormous games like a Call of Duty or a League of Legends that takes a long time to build. And so there's going to be winners attacking each of these segments. There's going to be a smaller market where it's a shorter development cycle. And then there's going to be a middle development cycle and like a AAA type. And so each of those markets are up for grabs for 2 or 3 mega studios to emerge from.
Mm-hmm.
I'm personally really excited about games that will expand the definition of what a game is. In that I think most people think about gaming as in front of a computer, mobile phone, or a console. But games like Pokemon, the idea of being outside, moving around, collecting items, I think that unlocked a different idea of what a game can be. So, from Solana Metaplex, we have another partner called Genopets, Move to Earn. Mm-hmm. And I'm really excited for that game as well.
Yeah, it's awesome. Oh, do you guys have any other thoughts at all, or?
I think I'm just like overly optimistic about this space. It's not going to be a straight path or an easy path. Actually, I think it's going to be a really, really hard path to go down, but it's like at the end of the road, I see this as Web3 is like how I feel about when the internet started when I was a young kid, and I was too young and not knowledgeable about enough to, make something out of. And I think I see this opportunity here where you can really build something big and meaningful, and really like the idea of like, everybody having a stake or ownership is just very powerful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I guess those are pretty much ends our talk today, and we can move on to our next session. And yeah, thanks for listening, everyone.
Nice.
Yeah, no?
You threw me a couple. Oh.
I can see more people in the audience, and that's amazing because we continue with the NFT panel sessions. Creators, whether it's a graphic designer, comic artist, musician, and all other types of creators, they all used Web 2 to plant the seed for the gig economy. And with the NFT marketplaces, the distance between the creator and the market has shrunk more. So the new horizon opens a world of opportunities for the gig economy of a booming creator class. Please welcome to the stage 6 amazing speakers. Bernd Banksy from Bernd Finance, Irvin Cardenas from OpenDive Technologies, Camille Mahfoud from Soul Analysis, Sam from Soul Art, Zen Heed from Magic Eden, and as a moderator, Nikhil Kumar from Solana Labs.
I have to turn to the left.
Hello. Everybody recovered from last night? I think, you know, at this point, hopefully everybody's woken up. I don't know if Bernd is awake under those glasses. We'll see. We'll see. Thanks, everybody, for coming. We have an incredible panel here, a mix of folks who have been building on Solana from the early days, which really isn't too long ago in real time, to folks who are recent entrants with incredible success. And so today we're going to talk about this transformation to the creator economy that we're in the middle of right now. We're going to think about how each of our panelists here are empowering creators and helping us transform our real world and internet economy to one that's better for creators. We're going to go around and kind of discuss some individual questions for each of the panelists on stage, and then we'll open it up to a bit more of a greenfield discussion afterwards. So first, Sam, back in June when the NFT ecosystem on Solana was just getting off the ground, Solanart was one of the very first to jump into building a secondary marketplace. Why did you start at that point? And since then, the market has evolved a lot. All right, how are you adapting, and what's next?
Yeah, so like you said, back in, it was June or July, like the NFTs on Solana were like very scarce. Like there was basically, like it was just starting to like grow. And basically, I guess we just like saw the potential of Solana. Like we saw like the low transaction fees, we saw the very fast transactions, and we were like, well, NFTs are booming on Ethereum. Why wouldn't they be booming on Solana, like, you know, like in the near future? The thing is, we didn't expect it to go that fast. So it all happened so fast, and we were just like building, like we just found like a new playground basically away from Ethereum and the like very high transaction fees. And we were like, okay, let's try like Solana. It looks cool. And like basically that's how it all started. And then little by little, it started growing and growing and booming. And then we feel like, I mean, personally, I feel like there was a before and an after Degenerate Ape Academy. That was when NFTs on Solana really exploded. And that's when we realized that, okay, we might be onto something. And we like kept on building, kept on like trying to improve our marketplace. And I guess like right now, what's in the future for us is to keep building, keep innovating, try to improve the marketplace like day by day, listen to like the criticism that's being made to us, and try to like listen to it and like build on what's being told to us. And obviously like recruit, like we're like a small team, as you might know. It's still like 4 people, but we're like getting there, recruiting, and we're gonna keep building because we want to be like one of the leading innovative projects on Solana, basically, along with like all these amazing projects that we have today.
Amazing, awesome. I mean, so this is a good segue into Zed, Magic Eden, right? Part of the kind of secondary marketplace ecosystem that has been maturing. you guys are a relatively recent entrant, but have been growing incredibly quickly and are now one of the biggest secondary marketplaces on Solana. What was missing in the ecosystem that made you start? And with all the continuing competition entering, how do you think about differentiating yourselves from all the other secondary marketplaces moving forward? And how do you think about competition differentiation in this space, both for yourself and generally for folks thinking about building?
Dude, big questions. So I think a few things, right? Like maybe I can share a bit of the origin story of Magic Eden as some context, because I think there's some interesting elements there. So our team comes from like very strong consumer product backgrounds. So I used to be a PM at Coinbase. My co-founders were at Uber and Facebook, and we were pretty interested to build like a super interesting consumer product in crypto. And we thought that NFT marketplaces was a really good place to do that because of the sheer like proliferation and growth in NFTs over the last 9 months. And we weren't even necessarily thinking about like Solana necessarily. We were actually just thinking about what should a Web3 marketplace truly look like. And we approached it from that first principles layer and felt that a lot of the existing marketplaces that were out there had very much of like an eBay style experience of like, it felt very transactional, right? Whereas in actuality, where we think NFTs are going is that it's very much a community and social element to this, as well as a transactional layer. Like in the same way that exchanges, for some, like as they proliferated, were, you know, they built the exchange, then they built like a brokerage, then they built like custody and all these other things around it. And I think NFTs will be in a very, very similar set of like infrastructure build over time. So that's sort of how we got started and why we wanted to build something a little bit different. And we've been around for just under 2 months, and it's been a pretty insane couple of months. So to your second question around like how I think about differentiation and competition, I think there's going to be obviously like very intense competition at that secondary marketplace layer. I think that's pretty clear, and that's true for Ethereum, that's true for Solana, that'll be true for any sort of like core secondary marketplace in any industry. For us, like when we think about differentiation, like there's a few things, right? One is you can go vertically and tackle things like primary issuance. And that's something we're really interested in. So how do you build a set of creator tools that allows creators to come in, you know, get into the ecosystem, mint NFTs in a way that doesn't require any coding, right? So like how do you lower the barriers to entry on that front? And then obviously like primary issuance then leads directly into the secondary marketplace. So that's kind of the first point, like a vertical sort of approach. Then there's like a horizontal approach where you can kind of tackle like, you know, specific categories like games or specific categories like one-of-one artwork, right? And like a lot of the marketplaces today have a very generalized marketplace experience. But my expectation going forward is that NFTs are going to get really weird in all these different categories. And whoever has like very deep, you know, deep set of standards, deep set of like UX experiences, a deep sort of like understanding of like what the use cases are within these verticals is going to do really well. So I think that's probably the other piece that we're thinking a lot about.
That's great. And you know, Irvin is building a game. Open Dive and Open Era is one of the leaders in thinking about gaming on Solana. Gaming on Solana is about to take off. Open Dive will be using NFT-backed assets in-game. Open Era is building an AR wallet to allow people to interact with NFTs in physical space. So, you know, to Zed's point, marketplaces are going to have to evolve to support gaming use cases. How do you think NFT marketplaces need to evolve, and how does the NFT ecosystem in general need to evolve to support the sorts of assets that you are going to be building for gaming?
So I think there's 3 things that need to happen. The first one is that we really need to focus on standards. And so when we think about, for example, interoperability, right? What does it mean to share assets in the metaverse? Everyone talks about this concept, but currently what happens is interoperability at the business level, right? So we need to have standards, not at the business level, but at the protocol level. So for example, current games, when they decide to kind of share assets across each other, they enter into a business agreement to kind of include these assets into each game, right? And so this could affect also how marketplaces work. But it's not only just standards at the technology or the protocol level, but also standards in terms of the terminology. I'm building a game, or we're building a game, not just for the degens, right? Not for the guys who are like in their mid-20s or mid-30s, because these guys are not going to grind 12, 10 hours, even more. In reality, it's the young audience. So if I go to my nephew, who's 6, and his cousins, and tell them, hey guys, you have to get a wallet. What does that mean? Or, hey guys, you're going to use gas. Like, what does that mean, right? So we need to think about not only about Web 3.0, but also about Web 2.0. And extending from that, I would say that really the concept of the marketplace is a centralized concept. I mean, I love these guys here, but in reality, when we think about Bitcoin back in the days, it was about peer-to-peer transactions. So we need to figure out a way to perform peer-to-peer NFT transactions, so loot box swapping and things like that. And there's other stuff too, really, to consider. For example, when you think about educating people, like I mentioned, and let's see. And also, like the last thing that I would say is, current mobile wallets are boring, right? Currently, people focus particularly on how to create these assets or these NFTs, but they don't focus on how to consume the actual asset. They don't focus on the experience. And so when we're building this wallet, we're really focusing around the experience for NFTs, right? And what comes next. And so that really needs to happen, right? How do we consume the media, not just how we showcase it as a JPEG on a plain wallet.
In addition to gaming, kind of enabling this kind of boom in NFTs, you talk about needing more kind of innovation in the way that we exchange. In the DeFi space on Solana, we've had a lot of that innovation, but it's maybe a little bit more difficult for the average person to engage with than an NFT transaction. Burnt is creating a lot of innovative auction types for NFTs, in addition to other kinds of tooling that will bridge DeFi and the NFT space. Currently the DeFi ecosystem feels a little bit independent of NFTs. But there's been a lot of talk of things like lending, fractionalization, staking of NFTs, right? Things like this. So, Burnt, if you're awake under those glasses, and that, what are the most promising use cases for NFTs in DeFi? Where are you guys going to play a role, and how is this going to actually take off with the mainstream?
Yeah, absolutely.
Mic check for Burnt.
I can yell.
Here.
I'm good at yell.
Go, Burnt.
Sorry, I gave you the bad one. Yeah.
I'll hold it if you want.
So, I mean, I think kind of to first start that off, just Urban, thank you, and I think kind of gave me a pretty good T-ball on what we're building over here. And I think kind of just starting, even before I dive into the question, a lot of this is really kind of dependent on answering what's been happening over the past hundreds of years in the current idea of a marketplace. And of course, Urban, I didn't pay him, I swear, but he gave me a pretty good T-ball on that. Marketplaces are a very centralized idea. And really, the way that Burnt started was this aspect of being able to create this completely peer-to-peer marketplace in a decentralized environment. This has been an industry that has really been, and I hate using the word gate-kept, but gate-kept for a very long time, where a lot of people, including people like us, really couldn't. I remember we burned a Banksy a while ago, sold it on OpenSea, and a lot of the places we couldn't even get onto because I was anonymous. And I wasn't famous yet. And kind of after that fact, you realize there's a very big issue, not only in crypto, but in the traditional environment, especially in the Web 2 world. And sadly, a lot of what I am seeing is, I like to call it radio on the internet, where it effectively is just Web 2 with the name of blockchain in mind, with no real deviation onto anything. And so to be able to create a peer-to-peer, completely decentralized marketplace is something that we've been trying to do for the past 5 months. And I think when we do take this next step, we truly see NFTs as a Trojan horse into the DeFi industry. I really don't think you had any more retail traction than something that Top Shot brought in. I mean, really look at something like Axie Infinity, or even all the play-to-earn games right now. I mean, at the end of the day, you're interacting with a DeFi protocol with a mask that is a game, and it's enjoyable and it's fun, and it brings in a lot of traction. And I think if there is a way that we get to this aspect of truly DeFi and a truly decentralized future, we see it as NFTs. It is a perfect Trojan horse.
Read. Thanks. Yeah. I mentioned that we have some kind of new entrants to the Solana ecosystem up on stage, and Zed talked about Magic Eden coming up online 2 months ago. Soul Analysis is a recent winner of the Ignition Hackathon, so congrats. It's also been an invaluable resource for those of us who need to kind of keep track of the NFT ecosystem growth. The metrics you're providing around total volume and market cap for NFTs has been great to kind of actually measure the growth, which has gone from basically 0 in June to over $1 billion in market value across NFTs in the Solana ecosystem as of just a few days ago.
Yep.
You're also now expanding into things like launchpad tools, release schedules, right? Things that go beyond metrics. So one question is about your roadmap. Are you going to be adding more analyses and metrics for the community to keep track of, or are you going in the direction of a different sort of product offering?
Yeah, I mean, we're trying to build towards this kind of unknown future, and it's interesting listening to people's views here on stage in terms of centralization versus decentralized. Like maybe there's going to be a million different marketplaces, maybe there's going to be a handful. It's kind of unclear, I think, at the moment because we're still applying a lot of Web 2 frameworks to Web 3. For us, where we really wanted to serve a pivotal role in the ecosystem is really being able to give this bird's eye view of what's happening no matter what. I do think we need to get a little bit further as far as standards and standardization, but the role that we've kind of filled early on is really serving as an aggregator. We want to go deeper in the aggregation tools for users. We think that it's going to get really, really crazy. It's going to be wild, and we need to help users be able to navigate this landscape and this ecosystem. And so we're continuing to build tools on the user side, including one thing that we did for the hackathon, which is actually how my co-founders and I got started with Soul Analysis, which is actually we wanted to understand what was the value of an NFT. We wanted to be able to predict the value, so we applied anything ranging from neural nets to a regression model to say, like, this is the predicted value of an NFT because you have a different host of user personas that want to get into NFTs, some of which want to be collectors, some of which want to be traders, some just want to be part of a community. And you want to empower people to make the right decision, even if that right decision is I want to buy into this community so that I can partake in this ecosystem that's forming. So we formed NFT Flex, we called it, in order to enable that. But I also think there's an entire host of applications that can be built on top of that, whether it's collateralization, borrowing and lending against NFTs, et cetera, which is really interesting hearing the Burnt on stage talk through DeFi. And like for us, like in terms of I think a lot of people actually on stage are probably really well suited to think of to go into DeFi and go down the DeFi track. And I think what's really appealing to us with NFTs, and it's probably really appealing to a lot of people in the room, is this mass adoption of crypto as a whole. And we think it's going to come in the form of NFTs, especially in developed countries where gaming, entertainment, et cetera, is really, really large. So to maybe summarize really quickly, we have all the tools that we're trying to build for users, but we also are trying to empower projects as well to help build towards kind of at least what we think that the future might hold. So we did release our Launchpad, and we're going to continue to go down the suite of features for projects, whether it's looking more into DAO formation and tooling, et cetera. I'll leave it at that.
That's great. I think all of you have shared some of the vision for where your projects are headed. And immediately, I hear some commonality around wanting to build better creator tooling. And we are kind of thinking about how we enable a more creator-driven economy here on stage today. What are some of the missing pieces of tooling in the Solana NFT ecosystem that you all want to build, or maybe an issue and challenge to the folks in the audience here? What needs to get built to make the NFT ecosystem in Solana the best for creators, out there? Go ahead.
Yeah, I think something that was, oddly common in a 5-person panel, but 3 people brought up standards, and I think that is where we need to start. Before we can really build anything on top of something, we need a very strong foundation. And I know a while ago, I think everyone on this panel absolutely uses, the Metaplex standard, which is awesome. And then kind of something that we had an idea a while ago was creating the Solana NFT Alliance. We have over 40 names on it, and really just trying to push this the idea of standardization, not only just just so that we can all have it and have ease of access. But for new people coming onto a platform, new developers, people who want to learn, there's no Open Zeppelin here right now, right? Especially if we want to have something like an Open Zeppelin on Solana. The idea for this kind of alliance was to do something like that, and I think especially as we start to kind of think of more standards on ourselves and really submit it to the community. For example, we're currently building a standard that we'll be pushing in the next 2 weeks of collections on chain, effectively, so we can kind of keep track of everything, right? But something like that where we can then bring this out to the community and we can all communally agree on a standard and kind of work towards this common goal. While effectively all boats are going to be rising together. And I think before we can really solve this situation of what we build on top, we need to figure out the standard solution. And we are in the best place because you're looking at the authors right now, and really the future is so bright. That's why I have the sunglasses, really.
Yeah, I think to extend from Bernd's comment, really, that standards do matter. And as I mentioned, I think we need to have standards at the protocol level, not at the business level. And so the Metaplex standard is one of them. And this sort of NFT standard is very different from what we see in EVM-compatible chains, where essentially the NFT is deployed to the chain. So anybody can go ahead and extend it or modify it and deploy it to be compatible with a traditional NFT, right? But this has an issue because what happens to royalties, right? If you guys use OpenSea, if you use kind of like Rarible, the royalties go away. And so the only way that royalties remain is if marketplaces agree upon that these royalties will stay. It's an EVM. Now, contrary to this, the Metaplex standard is on-chain, right? It's at the protocol level. So any marketplaces, Solana, Magic Eden, when NFTs are traded or sold, the royalties remain there. And so that's huge. So that's one thing I think we got to look into. And for everyone out there that's looking into NFTs or building or deploying anything related to NFTs, I think user experience is something that's really missing, right? How to consume the media. But also, I would say to a lot of marketplaces coming up that I think, you don't have to always charge the user to trade NFTs, right? I can't imagine, like telling someone in the Web 2.0 world, hey, you're going to have to pay a tiny fee every time you do something, right? In the ETH world, we have this concept of meta transactions, where essentially the transactional cost or the gas cost is eaten up by the platform. And so I look forward to that coming to Solana pretty soon.
And I know that there are people here who are working on meta transactions, like
yep.
Taurus and others.
Shout out.
Bring it up in conversations. Love to hear more thoughts, right? What are some of the creator tools that need to exist in the ecosystem? We heard about protocol standardization. It's incredibly important, especially for all of the builders in the crowd. What are we doing to make it easier for folks who don't code, for folks who are artists, who are creators, and all sort of stripes? What do we need to build to make this a really user-friendly environment?
Yeah, I can jump in a couple of comments. I think the first thing there's two users, right? One is the creator, and one is the end user who's looking to explore what NFTs are interesting or what communities are interesting. I think on the first one, it's we've had so many projects come and approach us and say, hey, do you guys have any developers that we can leverage, utilize, or can someone help me get this project up and running? So I think the first thing that's very, very low-hanging fruit is if I have a bunch of digital files and some metadata, how can I turn that into something that's a collection or a drop or something that's that is a set of NFTs, right? And I think that's sort of what we're generally converging towards around this launchpad idea. We have a launchpad on Magic Eden as well, and I think there's a few different ways to go about this. On the end user side, I think one of the big UX problems that we've been thinking about is if you're a first-time user landing on Magic Eden or Solana or one of these marketplaces, there are 500 collections there. Which one is interesting to me? Why would I buy into a Thugbird? Why would I buy into a DGen Ape? What is it about these communities that is interesting? And there's actually no way to do that within the experience of a traditional marketplace, which is why I think there's some social layer that's I think really interesting here. And you imagine it's something like land on the site. Maybe it's some level of information around what the community is talking about, what they care about. Maybe they're voting on some proposals. And it gives you a flavor of what is important and what matters to this community versus landing on this page and then you're just overwhelmed with what's going on. So I think there's something there from a UX standpoint. The kind of community interaction and community environment is very fragmented across Marketplace, Discord, Twitter, a bunch of other places, right? So I think on the end user side, there's a ton more we can do, whether that's in the web app or a mobile app that can help with a lot of that information.
Yeah. Oh, go ahead.
You go ahead.
All right. Okay. So yeah, like, well, obviously there's different types of like users, you know, like there's the traders, there's the holders, and then you have like different backgrounds. You have users that come from a different blockchain. You have users who are like totally like new to crypto, and like crypto is like different from like the regular world because you have all these different blockchains that are developing, and like the question is how do you onboard them on Solana, and how do you like provide that value that'll make them like come and like produce their art on Solana. And so I feel like that goes through like a different set of tools that are like coming out like as we speak. So for example, Solflare just announced like their mobile app. That's extremely important. Like a lot of our users use a phone. Like they all like do their transaction on a phone. So like that's one of the things. Like most people like only like use like the marketplaces on the phone, you know. So like that's one thing. Like making it more accessible to like regular users, whether they're like already familiar with the blockchain or if they're just like discovering it. Making like Zed said, like the user experience better. Like providing tools such as like being able to like mint your NFTs without having like any knowledge of code. That's like one way to go at it with that is like a launchpad. Another is like something that other marketplaces do, like minting your NFTs like directly on the marketplace. That brings other like issues, you know, like fakes and all that. So like I feel like there's a lot to think about in that aspect. We already have our own ideas on how to approach that, and I feel like that's like an area where like creativity is really needed, basically. So like yeah, like how to help like creators do that is basically by providing these tools that you can build on the marketplace and like help them like have like a seamless experience, just like they have like, for example, on Amazon. And that's like what we've been thinking about for the last month, and that's where like we're gonna be starting to build.
Awesome. Yeah. Go
ahead. Yeah. I think that a lot of the utility has been really limited with NFT projects to date, right? Like, I don't want to believe that the utility of all these NFT projects is going to be like buying and selling on the secondary market. Like, I think that there will be, especially in the gaming world, et cetera, like there's going to be these really, really fun applications of NFTs and what I can do with them. And I think that's where we need people building. I think that there are a bunch of people working on the Launchpad. I'm not going to lie, we ourselves are also working on the Launchpad. Effectively, it's called Moonshot, and we'll be launching our first cohort later this month. So we have a couple of different projects. You can check it online. But it's also like, hey, what comes after that? Is it really just like, okay, everybody who's joined this community can just like trade it back and forth with each other or with like new members? What if everybody who bought into this collection really wants to be part of this collection because of like what it can provide? And there's actually really limited secondary trading because there's like, I don't know, something else that people are doing with it. So I think we're going to have to figure out, we need to figure out what is the something else, and we'll have to create, there's going to need to be tooling because you're transferring a lot of people that are probably not going to come from the Web3 world into Web3 because they have a lot of experience doing this in other domains. And so there's going to have to be tooling to kind of bridge people over into this world.
A good example of that, HTML5 Canvas NFTs just, I just saw the first project released on the FTX marketplace recently. This allows for sort of interactivity in the browser with an NFT. It's going to unlock a lot of different use cases from just the sort of profile picture projects that we've seen be successful so far. So we've got about a minute and a half left. Let's do like a rapid fire. After profile pictures, what are going to be the next interesting use cases for NFTs in the Solana ecosystem? Let's start with Sam and go this way.
So I think that like right now there's a wave coming of basically like gaming NFTs and like metaverse and all that. And that's like going to be a new challenge for marketplaces to tackle. Like how do you provide value to these projects so that they'll like they'll like be able to like have their users enjoy their experience and trade their NFTs with like the particularity of like it being a gaming NFT. So for example, we're like working with Aurori on that, and like which is like one of the biggest gaming NFTs on Solana. And we feel like that's probably going to be it. Like, we're going to shift probably towards utility NFTs, so gaming, metaverse, probably like digital goods. And that's like what's really exciting to us, and that's like what we want to see.
Rapid fire, probably gaming, DeFi, and then a bunch of stuff I don't know.
I would say gaming or NFTs in gaming that are not lazy, because I don't think that your NFTs need to be put to work whenever you're physically there. So,
yeah, I mean, personally, I kind of think it's going to be a lot of immersion, right? So, like, to kind of give an example, the next thing that we're burning is, sadly or finally, whatever you stand on that, Bartaj's slippers and actually working. You know, hopefully there's a 3D model that we can make or someone who can help us make it. But effectively, you all get to feel the chamois pride of wearing Bartaj's slippers after
yeah, so come over to the hacker house and be able to try on the slippers in the metaverse after we burn them.
I'll say a couple of things. One is capital markets for NFTs, which obviously is very related to games, and then layering of NFTs on one another. Could be games, could be anything, but it's just going to get pretty weird. So we're pretty excited about it.
All right, thank you so much, everybody on stage. I think we finished right on time. Thank you for coming. Glad.
Thank you so much, guys. I don't need one. Oh, looks we are full. Based on the amount of people in the audience and multiple happy faces that I can see, you seem to enjoy our little NFT series. Our next panel in the NFT series will be Nifty collections, and we'll take a look at the top NFT collections on the blockchain of Solana. And our speakers, please welcome Sam Draper from Galactic Gecko Space Garage, Max Fu from Neon Heroes, Simon Vieira from Max Mob, and Tom Leaves from Solana Labs as a moderator.
Everybody, could you give a round of applause to our speakers today? Alrighty, yeah. So today we're about to talk about a curated look at the NFTs. Like we talked about marketplaces just now, but we are now going to talk about the actual collections that power those marketplaces. And specifically, we want to explore the community, the culture that powers these NFTs. And so I would like to first introduce Sam from Galactic Gecko Space Garage.
Hello, everybody.
And Max from Neon, sorry.
It's all good. Neon Heroes, what's up, guys?
Simon from Mixmob.
Hey, everyone.
Yeah, and I'd like to, first start with Sam. If you could kind of like intro Galactic Geckos and,
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. So for everybody who knows or is in our Discord, I go by Draper, but first name is Sam. Galactic Geckos, we launched September 22nd. Our team is filled with crypto OGs. We've been in constant communication like you do on Discord, full-time DGen, right, for about 5 years. And we came together, we saw Solana NFTs, and we felt like we could bring something different to the Solana ecosystem based on what we saw on Ethereum and even take it a step further. So that's what we went after. We love what the Bored Apes did in regard to you really feel like you're part of a community. But again, we have elements to our project that take it even to another immersive level. So mainly it's the lore. We work together as a team, we come up with concepts and write a story that pairs with our profile picture collection, but we also have art that is off-chain and additional collections on-chain that go to holders of the original collection. So we do have a little short video to show you guys. Thank you.
Okay, well, thank you so much. Simon, could you also intro us to Mixmob?
Sure.
That was pretty cool, Sam.
Thank
yeah.
you.
I will go with the video too, just to start before I tell you more about our project. 1 second.
Make some fucking noise.
Awesome.
Yeah, so can everybody hear me okay? Yeah? Okay, cool. So we're Mixmob. We're a P2E game powered by Solana. We work under one premise. What would we do if an AI deleted our culture? So from that premise, in our game and in our lore, we went underneath and started a resistance movement to battle the AI. And what you saw there are our masks. And mask gives us anonymity in our community. And we believe that when you wear a mask, we all are part of the same community. So that's what's starting our game. We come from games. I come from game. I worked at EA, PokerStars, and other games for many years. And our job now is to, we were waiting for the perfect time where blockchain was in a point where we can start bringing games into it. And obviously, Axie proved that. Sam and Galactic Geckos have proved the idea of bringing NFTs and start giving them lores and ways to get them bring that entertainment into it. Same with Neon Heroes. So we're really excited. We have a ton of crypto OGs backed our project. And yeah, here just to represent and tell you more about it.
Okay, awesome. Max, could you tell us more about Neon?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, my name's Max. I'm the founder of Neon Heroes, ex-surgeon turned full-time degen. Basically, what we're building is a play-to-earn game on the Solana ecosystem. Essentially, our game is a third-person shooter battle royale. The best way to think about it is a mix of Fortnite and Apex Legends. And what we're trying to do is bring like a AAA quality game into the play-to-earn space. And we really want to stand up next to traditional industry titles like you see currently on Twitch and YouTube and things like that. And what we are doing in order to create this AAA title is essentially onboarding industry experts from AAA studios in our lead roles. We've basically got people from Riot Games, Ubisoft, Electronic Arts, Respawn Entertainment, and they're all building out a really high-quality game that we essentially imagine that's going to last for the long term. The other thing that we're doing that we're really passionate about is building a sustainable in-game economy. We are one of the first games to be implementing a stablecoin system inside our in-game economy, inside our own metaverse, that is going to form the backbone of our player-based economy. Our project wants to highlight our community, the diversity behind everything. We are one of the first projects, well, we are one of the few projects with a female co-founder, co-founder there, Wendy, sitting out in the front row. And yeah, like our community is, they come from all walks of life. We have 55,000 members in our Discord right now. We have about 30,000 Twitter followers. We're currently ranked 4 on Solana. And they come from all walks of life. I've had chats with all of them. It's a really down-to-earth community. They love cats. They love mech robots. They love, shooters. I've spoken to teenagers, university students, adults, parents. We're all about inclusivity and diversity.
Awesome, thank you. Well, let's start off the discussion with how you approach culture, right? Because all of you have basically created these communities like 10K, 100K, like it's massive, right? And the interest is insane. And so I was wondering, like, how do you build your community? Like, what strategies do you use?
Sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think that's a great question. To me, when I hear the number 10,000, it's, if you're thinking long term, 10,000 is a very small number, especially if NFTs are going to continue to penetrate culture. And it's interesting you mentioned culture specifically because, in my opinion, culture really is crypto's secret weapon, right? You have DeFi, of course, everybody loves DeFi, but DeFi is a tool. I'd say culture is more meaning. And there's, as history goes on, people interact with NFTs. They're exposed with them more and more every day as Web 2 is working on integrating, for example, Twitter, right, with what they're doing with their system of profile picture verification. The more people see these things as a part of culture, that's just going to become who we are, right? So getting back to your original question, to me, 10,000 is not that big of a number. Right now, I think we're approaching 4,000 unique holders, and it's almost like, you know, what happens when we get to 8,000, right? So 10,000 is a small number, Tom.
No, for sure. Yeah. Simon, any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. For me, culture, I think it's the key to the growth of the ecosystem. People, we talk a lot about this internally, and when you look at cities like Paris, Tokyo, London, people are willing to pay higher taxes for the culture, for entertainment. So the idea of bringing culture into our world, it's on point. And for us, we bring culture. Our whole premise is, what would we do if an AI deleted our entire culture and we needed to rebuild it? And so if you see the masks that we just showed you, they grab things from actual culture, like Mickey Mouse ears and Simpsons eyes and things like that we're rechaining. And one of the things that we love about crypto is we're remixing. It's a remix culture. So that's, for us, our key focus: to grow community, remix culture, bring them all together. We all accepted diversity. Max mentioned that. That's huge.
Max, I know that you guys have been also running a lot of community challenges as well, like and that seems to be part of how you're building out the community as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We are obviously very passionate about our community. We have a great community in our project at the moment. And yeah, the way we want to build our community is kind of very diverse. We're not specifically targeting existing community groups in only the Web3 space. We have a very unique IP that we've created. On the one hand, we have these really cute, quirky-looking cats, but on the other hand, they're sitting in these badass mecha robots, and they're running around a battle royale field, shooting each other with futuristic guns. It's quite an eclectic mix, and I think that's what sets us apart, from other projects. We're not really trying to fit within the same mold. We're trying to carve out our own niche in the space. And I think that's important in crypto, because it's such a new, nascent industry. There's so much potential for growth. I want to expand horizontally, onboarding more and more people into our community and into the whole Web3 space through diversity, rather than necessarily doubling down on existing concepts. And yeah, we did do a bunch of really crazy community events as part of our pre-sale. One of our requirements was that our community had to find a cat. It could be their own, it could be a friend's, it doesn't matter. They had to find a cat, pose next to it, and send a little paper slip with the current date and their Discord name on it. And that gave them an entry, a raffle ticket to one of our pre-sale events. We actually got almost 3,000 entries for that, which was amazing to see. So yeah.
Dog owners are not going to make it.
Doggos are not going to make it, I'm sorry. No, we love doggos. So
it seems like lore is a really important facet of I of your projects. How do you kind of approach it?
Yeah. So I do a lot of the creative direction for Geckos. I definitely don't have a formal education in creative writing, but I was a big reader as a kid, and a lot of our lore, you can look back at famous titles, and there's inspiration there. There's some Star Wars inspiration, some elementary fantasy inspiration. So that's the base of it. But we work as a team. We talk to the community. People suggest ideas. We won't run up to somebody and DM them and say, hey, we're going to go with this. But we're inspired by the community. Yeah.
That's awesome. Well, what are some of the challenges that you guys have kind of faced as you've been building out your projects? Simon, you want to go first?
Sure, I can go. Besides the technology changing, everything so new with Candy Machine, Solana, actually, I would have to say probably that. It's you're in a frontier and you're just trying to figure it out as you go. We are newer. You guys are showing the way to this movement. So it's pretty cool. But definitely Solana. understanding Candy Machine, the limitations. We were just talking about this, Sam and Max, just behind the scenes, and it's that Candy Machine it's such a beautiful product for NFTs, but at the same time, it's just very laser focused, doesn't like to be twinkers. So some of the ideas that we have, like whitelisting, things like that, that you could do in, for example, in Ethereum, you can do with Candy Machine, or if you can, you have to do all these other ways. And Sam, you were saying you figure some of that out, but that would be number one. Number two is all these projects, if you were thinking about doing an NFT project, you've seen it. It's all about the community. I mean, community, it's what's going to run the show. And building that community, starting from zero, you need to have very strong values, very strong lore, a really good storytelling. So that is, how do you start that? How do you prove that your story is good, that your values are strong? Just validating that. So I would say, just to summarize, definitely the technology and experimenting with that, with the community, the mechanics of building that community. It's definitely some of those challenges.
And I think at this point in the history of Solana NFTs, it's very expected for things to be like that, right? Like we're still very on in the adoption curve of Solana NFTs and NFTs as a whole. So you know, for us, we expect you know, the tools for creators to get better over time.
Yes, I think that's a must.
Right.
For us to all grow, and we're looking forward to just teaching and showing the ways like you guys have. So that it is something else that I would like to say is, one thing that I love about this community is, and you hear it talk often, is it's not a zero sum. There's not like a winner or a loser. Like we all part of the community. We're all growing. We're all sharing knowledge, and that's something that's really cool.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we're all still early.
We're going to make it.
You know, one of the major challenges, you know, that we found was essentially, you know, self-imposed, because we like to do things different. I personally really don't like copying, you know, other ideas or even other protocols. I really like to make things challenging for myself. So we did a pretty unique, you know, pre-sale event. But you know, part of that, we ran into some issues with the tech side of things. But yeah, so for example, like the Candy Machine that currently is hosted by Metaplex, which is really great, doesn't have a whitelisting function. And you know, that was a problem because we wanted to whitelist our community in order to, you know, get our pre-sale NFTs. So what we were able to do was actually implement a whitelisting function ourselves, you know, on top of the existing repository. Happy to open source that code to anyone that wants it. I think it's a pretty valuable tool that we were able to execute pretty well. I think our community was really appreciative of the fact that, you know, our pre-sales largely, for the most part, you know, prevented bot buying and bot flipping with that, which was pretty cool. So yeah, you know, if anyone else wants to use the Candy Machine but wants to have a whitelist function, yeah, hit me up afterwards. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think there's a lot of things that could be done as far as the minting process programmatically. But one of the things that we try to do is, you know, bring innovation to our project on the tech side. And one of those things originally didn't go as planned, but was to develop an on-chain registry with an Oracle to keep track of different events that the geckos took place in our adventure, in our lore. And we were very, very close. It was almost there, but you know, there's just small but key pieces missing that just not quite there yet. But you know, we're looking at a lot of things now. We want to, you can do this on Ethereum, but not yet on Solana. We want to be able to take individual NFTs and form a composite NFT. I know other projects have sort of suggested at doing it. I think, is it Infinity Labs? Mm-hmm. But I don't know if they've developed the tech yet, but that's definitely something that we're looking into and to incorporate it later on.
Well, I'm also curious as to, you know, like speaking of like the user adoption that you were talking about, I think that we've seen a lot of projects currently focused on Web3, you know, communities, right? Like targeting the crypto native people, but they haven't really branched out yet to, you know, to our average, you know.
Sure.
Yeah, and so I'm wondering, like, what are your views on it, and like, how do you want to tackle that?
Well, I think it's really Web 2's job to do that. So again, getting back to sort of my first answer is that the more Web 2 does that, the more exposure is going to come to the crypto native culture. right? And I think that's, we're all here because we're all crypto native. Like, we want Tom Brady to have, the King Scully, right? We want our culture ingrained in mainstream culture, and I think NFTs are the method to do that. Yeah. But at the same time, then you get, if you get mainstream looking at NFTs, which they have, you also buy like a gateway drug, get them looking at DeFi.
Max, any thoughts there?
Yeah, I mean, absolutely. We're really passionate about bringing, crypto gaming to the mainstream. That's one of our personal end goals for our product. And, obviously we're going to be doing everything on our end internally to make that happen. But I know there are a ton of, great other projects out there at the moment that are building their own tools to kind of help other gaming projects integrate a lot more seamlessly. I don't know if any of the guys from Stardust are here, but shout out to the Stardust guys. I think they're doing some incredible work. And yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before the rest of the tool set is developed for other games to just kind of plug and play. And essentially, we want to create a really seamless UI where players can play our game, get automatically assigned a wallet as they sign up into our service, and that all runs on the back end without them even having to realize necessarily that there is a Web3 component behind it. And I mean, they can obviously get into that later on if they want to, but at least having that first user experience be seamless is something that's pretty important to us.
Okay. Another question that I had was, we've been seeing a lot of projects start to integrate and discuss collaborations, and like even for I believe that Monkey DAO, for example, is also working with squads, and they're going to do a ton of stuff moving forward. I'm curious, do you guys have a roadmap for that, or any plans there? You working with other projects?
Sure, absolutely. For us, so one of our key focus in our game and our project is user-generated content. We believe that that's the future of the space. And for us, having the tools that you mentioned, Stardust, shout out to them. We talked to them, and what they're doing, allowing people that are passionate and creators to create in our games, in our ecosystems, and share those creations, and mint them, make them part of the culture. It's for sure key. So user-generated content, just that idea of collaboration with the community, it's 100% key for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Collaborations between NFT projects is the future. Even in the sense of multi-chains, right? Because we're all heading towards a multi-chain universe, I think, at the end of the day. And it's just, I think it's a highly personal choice with your project whether you want to implement that internally in your own project, or whether you want to do it through another project that is more focused on that. For example, we spoke to some of the guys at Nifty Island. We've also spoken to the guys at Rushdown Revolt. They're doing some pretty amazing things, incorporating a whole slew of metaverse projects into their own ecosystem. And that's really great. We definitely want to get involved in that. We're also working with another one called High Street, which is like a VR metaverse. And yeah, it's really exciting. We definitely want our Nyangs, our cats, to be in many metaverses. I think it just comes down to a choice, whether you want that to be your own as well. That might be, we have some pretty ambitious plans for our metaverse, so that adding other projects into ours might just be a little tad much in terms of technical liabilities, but more than happy to join in other existing metaverse projects. I think the aggregator approach is pretty cool.
It is. Yeah, I think there's a lot of room and flexibility for NFT collaborations. We're doing a lot of things like that. Shout out Little Rocks. They're minting in a few days. So our art is 2D, but of course they're a 3D metaverse, and they built a 3D Enigma crystal. And right now we're working with them to get those out to our community. So I think there's room for that, but I also think there's tremendous opportunity between NFT projects and DeFi projects. I'm of the opinion, not everybody shares this opinion, but an NFT project should not necessarily have a DeFi element to their own project. However, I do think there's room for partnerships and collaborations with DeFi. So we've had conversations with staking solutions, so on a very superficial level, incorporating that into our lore somehow. So for example, MSOL could be the official currency of the geckos in the Geckoverse. But there are ways to go beyond that. There's the lending, the collateralization of NFTs, and I'm sure you guys have looked into that too. Yeah, after you.
Oh, sorry, what was the question?
Collateralization of your NFTs?
Yes, absolutely. You mentioned DeFi. I think for us, because we're building a metaverse, essentially, land, the idea behind land, giving our land, so one of the biggest plans we have is the deflatory system of land. So what if in our metaverse there is water that takes over the land, you can rent your land. So it opens the opportunity for so many things. Also, the idea of one big thing that we're doing in our game is we have an avatar, and the idea of renting your avatar and being able to play with the avatar to somebody that is renting that, it's fantastic. And these are concepts that we've dreamt for years in games. So I worked at FIFA for many years, and one of the biggest problems was how do you share accounts? If somebody has an account, how do you share that? How do you share the currency? And so now with blockchain, especially with Solana, it's a dream come true, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I think, NFTs initially started out as PFP projects. That was the main driving force behind the whole thing. But I think in the future, the more utility you can assign your NFT, the more value it's going to have. And when we start talking about, like putting your NFT to work, that starts to assign it a lot more utility. And, games or projects can put their own NFTs to work in their own games, but on top of that, you can partner up with other DeFi protocols, and you can collateralize, for example, your NFTs in terms of like borrowing, lending. I've spoken to another guy who's creating like an NFT automated market making solution, which he started talking to me about it, and honestly, I got to say, a lot of it went over my head, but it sounds really amazing. So yeah, just really exciting to see the potential possibilities of how you can use your NFTs. I think we're just scraping the surface.
Right. I mean, with the hackathon alone that we organized recently, we've, I believe Neftify was like the winner of our digital art collectibles, and I believe that's the project that you were talking about. Yeah, no. And it's super exciting to see kind of like not only games, but DeFi projects or, NFT projects and Web3 projects. It seems like they're all kind of like converging into one. They're all creating DAOs and like building on like the primitives that we have currently and using them. Cool. That's awesome. But I guess like I wanted to ask, like you mentioned, utility of NFTs. What is kind of like your view? Like how do you think like NFTs are going to evolve like, moving forward? Simon, you want to?
Sure. I think back to the user-generated content, the utility for us is what you can do with your avatar in the game, what you can do with the assets that you have in the game. So for us, customization is huge in our game, in our lore. So how you look in-game, it's going to give you the flex, and not only the flex, but it's going to give you the cloud of how you look in real life. Sorry, it's going to give you the cloud of how you look in the game. So for us, that's super important. In real life, we dress, we have certain styles. So just giving that utility to players to be able to customize, and not only customize, but sell those customizations in marketplaces, rent your avatars to other people to play. That to us gives a lot of utility. And back to the user-generated content, DeFi, I agree 100% with Sam. DeFi, user-generated content, that's how you give utility to these worlds.
Yeah. So I'm going to stick to my guns here as far as culture and entertainment media. It's a $3 trillion business worldwide. NFT total market cap, if you're looking at Ethereum and Solana together, maybe 12, 13, 14 billion. So there is a ton of room for growth. And yes, you can do things like really complex games that look like real-world games. I get that. There's room for that, and I think that falls under what I'm saying. But as far as finding or even stretching utility too far in NFTs, I don't think it's quite time for that yet. I think there's a lot of work to be done on projects, not necessarily profile picture projects, but more entertainment, digital identity solutions.
Right. Okay. Yeah. Well, I did want to, I guess, we're coming to the end of our session here, but we, several weeks back, like we had a 14-year-old student mint her own collection of NFTs, and it was wildly successful, of which she donated a large sum to a conservation fund. And I was just wondering, like, do you have any advice for future, NFT projects that are looking to build on Solana, and
Yeah, I think the best thing is just to be honest with yourself. The quality of your art, the quality of your team, the commitment that you have, and everybody hates to hear it, but the market conditions. Take those things to account, and don't try to force a launch if you are not at least 85, 90% confident that you're going to have a successful launch. Yeah.
For me, if you're going to launch your own NFT collection or project, start with community. It's an obvious statement, but sometimes we forget. And the way you start with community is with strong values, a strong story that you can engage with the community. I agree with Sam 100%. Just make sure that everything is in order. Your technology, you understand you're 80% there. Don't rush it. And lastly, I would say make sure that you validate that with the community. I think that's important. You just show your work. Sometimes we're too precious, with our work.
Yeah.
But if you share it, you get feedback.
And I think it's important to validate with it in your early community members.
Exactly.
But also to show it to somebody who doesn't really know much about NFTs.
That's right.
And ask them to be brutally honest.
100%.
And people will DM me from other projects, and I'll be very quick to tell them, hey, don't do that. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think anyone can make their own NFT collection. My own personal advice would be to forge your own unique identity. I think we are far too early in our phase or our NFT cycle to be copying or recycling the ideas or works of others.
Right.
There's so much potential that is untapped in the NFT industry right now that I would really encourage people to do something unique, do something meaningful, find a problem, find a solution for it that actually addresses that problem, rather than trying to necessarily just see what else is working and just, oh, I'm going to copy this, I'm going to copy that, I'm going to, do X, Y, Z. I think forging your own unique identity is going to be key.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much, everybody, for your time, and
thank you.
It'll be exciting to see the continued growth of NFTs on Solana.
Thanks, Tom.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thanks, Tom.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now we have our last, but not less interesting panel, which is called World of Worldcraft. The infrastructure behind the metaverse. How to unlock the possibilities of the metaverse. The digital world offers open canvas to build on top of. Find how to make the dream a reality with our speakers, Sebastian Campos from Arweave, Canon Linder from Stardust, who will join us in 5 minutes, Greg Ossery from Akash Network, Matthew Slots from Olaplex, and Colleen Nimkar from Solana Labs as a moderator.
All right, testing. I'll apologize in advance if my voice cracks awkwardly. My voice has gone through a lot of strain these last few days. As I'm sure it's the same case for many of you. I think Kanan confused the venues, and so he'll hopefully join us shortly, but we'll get kicked off without him. I think I wanted to open this, before we get into the nitty-gritty of building the metaverse and the infrastructure it takes, let's just set the stage with a fun little trick question. In 3 sentences or less, how would you define the metaverse? And I think that's for each of you.
Well, can you hear me okay? So metaverse is the space you interact that is not your immediate surrounding, for me. So from the moment you wake up to the time you sleep, I interact with spaces that are not immediately physical to me, like Twitter, for example, or Slack, for example. I live in a virtual world for the most part. That, in my definition, is the metaverse. And slowly but surely, we're moving the ratio between how much we spend in real life versus the virtual life is widening and towards the virtual life. So we are already in metaverse in some definition.
Experienced over the last 2 years. All the time we've spent online, all the time many of us are in a room with people for the first time. We've been having all of our experiences through new profile pictures, new ways of expression in many different platforms and places, and that's only going to grow from here. But now we've all at least had a taste of it. That to me is still the metaverse.
Yeah, for me it's a collection of ownerless, decentralized virtual spaces.
Nice. Sebastian was the only one who kept it under 3 sentences. Congrats.
That was tight. That was tight. Yeah, we may actually be in the metaverse right now. I'm expecting velociraptors to come flying through this glass and eat us all. So it's kind of looking like Jurassic World out there.
Yeah. Yeah, the venue's great. I agree. All right, so let's get into it. So the one way I think about this is that there's infrastructure that needs to get built to enable the metaverse that's for builders, and then there's a set of infrastructure that needs to get built to make it accessible to users to experience it. And so let's start with the builders angle first. So I guess I'll open the question to Sebastian and Greg. What are the key pieces of infrastructure you guys think need to get built out for builders to create?
So again, if you look at builders building metaverse, there are 2 pieces. So there's the actual building piece and making that piece what you built available to users, right? The hosting piece. From a hosting standpoint, we need different layers that you are used to today, which is discovery, processing, storage at a higher level. And discovery, I would classify as DNS and blockchain-based discovery systems. And processing would be compute, something like Akash Network or Live Peer or different specialized compute networks. And then you have storage, which is Arweave and Skynet and Filecoin and different storage providers offering different features, right? So what we need that doesn't exist to build a metaverse is at a higher level. I think today the risk of metaverse increasingly becoming centralized or controlled by a single party exists, right? So the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we want the metaverse controlled by Facebook, which looks like they're charging full speed ahead, or do we want the metaverse to be controlled by ourselves, owned by ourselves, right? So if you look at the infrastructure where we have sovereignty over this new universe where we're going to spend most of our lives in, that is still very early stages. And I think we have different pieces that can function individually, and we're just starting to see some sort of a product market fit for these individual pieces. But there is still a lack of cohesive interoperability and better user experience from an access standpoint, even for builders, that's lacking. And a lot of us in this panel right here, we're working together to solve that problem in different ways. And it's not if we're going to solve the problem, it's when, I think. And once we solve the problem, it's just going to be exponential adoption for the decentralized version of the infrastructure for metaverse.
Yeah, I also agree with that. I think that you need, there's some components there, but you need to have composability, you need to have interoperability for all of this to actually, work together well. And all of these, in my view at least, should be decentralized, because the last thing that you want in a metaverse is, someone just like changing the terms of conditions, and all of a sudden, whatever space you had is just, oof, gone, right? So it should have a focus on censorship resistance and just like making sure that not one single party can decide of the fate of the metaverse.
Makes a ton of sense, and we'll come back to a little bit of like the debate on how Meta and a centralized metaverse could play out versus the decentralized one. But I want to first close off on the other angle here, which is from a consumer's perspective, as someone who's experiencing the metaverse, what do they need in order, like what do we need to build in order for that to happen? And so I think, Matt, you're well positioned to answer this one.
Yeah, I think so. Well, when we look at Olaplex and our kind of focus on the indie creator, and we see indie creators everywhere in real life all of the time. Every cafe we walk by, we'll see writers and artists, musicians. These folks do not have access to the metaverse. They don't really have access to the decentralized world. And so with Olaplex, what we're trying to look at is how do we create all of the tools that people need to bring humanity to the blockchain. All of the unique interactions that come from finding friends, building a community, being able to actually successfully bring a project to life. That may require all of the amazing technology that these guys know how to build, and then still need to be able to connect with people to make that happen. So it's gonna be everything from being able to navigate into crypto for the first time, both for the collector or the buyer of NFT or art in this metaverse, and for the creators. So I think what we're really focused on is how do we bring those people with no experience at all, right into the same experience we're all having today.
Makes a ton of sense. Okay, so when we think about now, let's go back to sort of centralized versus decentralized systems and infrastructure. I think there's a couple of key factors, it seems like, that are worth considering, and I'd love to get this panel's thoughts on where we are today with these key factors. And I think the three that come to mind for me are cost, scalability, and security. And so I'm curious, I guess maybe we can start with Greg, on the compute side. If we had to compare decentralized options for compute today versus centralized options today across those three criteria, where are we? And in the future, where do you think we are if that's substantially different from today?
Great. So I think I would classify infrastructure as three separate pillars. You have cost, you have capabilities, and then you have I would say productivity, right? How quickly can you use a piece of infrastructure, right? So if you look at decentralized networks, especially for like Akash, from a cost standpoint, Akash costs anywhere 1/5 to 1/3 of what Amazon would cost, right? And the reason for that is because the compute power comes from a disparate sources in an open market, and acquired using a reverse auction mechanism where the user sets the price, right? So it's a fairly priced, market-driven price point that turns out there's ubiquitous amount of compute, and that drives cost. Something like Arweave, cost is not necessarily a sorry, I'll let Sebastian talk to it, but I'm really excited about Arweave because I love the product and whatnot. For them, it's not necessarily a cost-driven, but more necessity, capability-driven, which is the permanence, right? Which is very important. But there are other sort of like networks that are cost-driven, like Saya. Saya is very competitive when compared to S3. The beautiful thing is we have this amazing set of available options that are not controlled by a single company, but rather by a decentralized network. And when it comes to productivity, I don't think we're quite there yet, right? So it's still a lot of the tools are still very hard to use. A big reason is just onboarding a user, right? So getting access to the tokens, and it's not that we can't settle tokens online. It's just the regulatory frameworks are arcane, designed in hundreds of years ago, or 100 years ago, that prevents us to even make our software available to users, right? But that said, being an open system, being a permissionless system, you have these amazing tools that are coming up around these ecosystems. Like Arweave has a great tool called Argo, I believe, right, or Rdrive, right? And Akash has tools like Akashlytics, and you have 4 or 5 different tools that onboard users in different ways. It's only time that'll be the decisive factor, and you'll slowly start seeing higher productivity. And people are already seeing higher productivity gains once you're in crypto, right? It's just that crossing over from the Web 2 to Web 3 is still challenging, right? So I think with cost, we're kind of there. With capabilities, we're getting there, and certain networks are very specialized in offering certain capabilities that are not possible in the centralized web today. And productivity, we're getting there, and we're getting there very, very fast.
Got it. OK, so I guess the one thing I'd want to dig into a little bit is how do you think about security, right? Because the concern with open systems is always that there's a wide attack vector space, and so just a little bit of how you think about that would be pretty valuable, I think.
Well, so it depends on the protocol. I mean, the multiple levels of security. I would argue being an open system is a lot more secure than a closed system, because open systems are publicly audited. The source code is publicly audited, and most software you use today is open source, and at least at least white labeled as closed source, right? So we already live in an open system. Like I would say, like 90% of the web is still run on Apache web servers, right? So security, when it comes to cost, the security guarantees are probably the same, or if not better, than what you would get in a traditional cloud. And because it's an open system, you have higher guarantees when it comes to reliability, because any configuration change has to go through a public setting, right? So I would argue it's a lot more secure than a traditional cloud.
Awesome. OK. And Sebastian, I guess turning over the question to you, kind of along those same dimensions of cost and scalability, or capability, I guess is a good way of putting it, and then security. How do you guys think about the data storage element of this? Yeah, for sure. I think that the way that we see this, data storage is crucial if you're storing NFTs, or if you're storing your metaverse somewhere, because you want it to be available constantly. You want to make sure that it's not going to go down, that people's NFTs are not just simply going to disappear. After all, these can be worth a lot of money. And so we think that the cost is not necessarily such a big factor. I mean, it's more the security that you actually want, making sure that your things are still available to you. So cost is minimal in that equation, right? I think that is by far the most important thing. Got it. OK. That makes a ton of sense. I guess Kanan was able to join us finally. Kanan, glad you could make it. Thanks. This is actually. Does the mic work? Yo. Oh. All right. That's proof. This is a question I asked Matt earlier, but I think it'd be good to get your perspective on this as well. Is I think when you think about building the metaverse and the infrastructure, there's stuff that you need to build for the people who are going to build it. And then there's a piece of it which is, how do you make the experience for the consumer who wants to experience the metaverse easy? And so I figured, given your perspective at Stardust and trying to build Web3 games, what do you think we need to bring hundreds of millions of people into this world?
Sure, thank you. I think overall we need something more managed than the default, like login with Phantom or login with MetaMask. I think that will always appeal to a certain set of users, and those users should always be able to offboard effectively into the mode of security that they actually want to use to play or interact with the ecosystem. I think on a broader scale, you see a lot of DeFi versus CeFi. CeFi being a Coinbase or an FTX, where that account is managed for you in an omnibus wallet so that actions aren't represented on chain. That's great from a user experience, but from a composability problem, it actually fragments liquidity. And so it's better, but you're still no farther along than where you started. It's just a bunch of ecosystems that are connected through a central layer, but the still fragment of liquidity leads to problematic issues when trying to build composable apps. And so the route we take, and I think we'll catch on more, is more a managed DeFi layer, where we're actually managing everybody's wallet internally as a Coinbase or an FTX would, but instead of putting them all in a single wallet, right, and making all the transactions in a database, we actually reflect every single state transition onto the chain itself. And that allows players in game through an NPC to, for example, interact with something like SushiSwap on chain. And it's a very different methodology. And so I think, to go back to your question, twofold. Number one, user experience from a more managed layer is a must-have, but then also exposing that managed layer so that there is still the composability and security guarantee we have of blockchain, and not just throwing that out the window because we say it's ease of use.
Totally. Makes a ton of sense. I mean, I can say personally, people like my girlfriend who aren't really crypto native, it stresses them out having to think about private keys and managing their own wallet. So it makes a ton of sense. What do you think, Kanan, are the challenges in actually, making that layer a reality? Is it a technical challenge? Is it a regulatory one?
Interesting question. I think if you look at the target customer base of many of the on-chain apps today, the target profile of one of their users to do, for example, in the NFT space, right, a drop or a sale or appeal to on-chain users, is actually not a user that wants a managed experience, right? They want to appeal to people who have a lot of Sol or have a lot of Ethereum or a lot of Bitcoin or something like that. And that far and wide is not, and is frankly kind of looser with their money, is not necessarily the type of person that comes from a Web 2 background that would then onboard with a credit card into Web 3. And we see a lot of that kind of in user direction. And so I think it's, first of all, a mindset change, right? As developers see more and more profitable avenues to target the millions of users who may not have Phantom and MetaMask currently, that's one of the biggest challenges we see when we speak to developers. It's not that they won't ever use us, or it's just like, for right now, their target customer is not actually somebody who wants to log in with Google, but rather their target customer is a Phantom user today.
Makes sense. Yeah, you got to know your customer. Okay, so I want to kind of keep in this thread of people who will experience the metaverse versus strictly the builders. But for you, Matt, because you've talked to a lot of artists and people who are not necessarily crypto people but want to create in this world, what are the concerns that they have? Like, what do we need to build to alleviate their reservations?
Yeah, I mean, I think Kanan started on this topic. So. For indie artists or first-time collectors of digital art who may be buying IRL art or something like this, they're not coming from a financial transaction, right? They're trying to be entertained. They're trying to experience beauty. They're trying to have a shared experience with a community and be part of that self-expression. And so, for them, the wallet and the financialization of art is actually very foreign. It's kind of the opposite of creative. And so removing all of those layers is critical. I think that on the back end of that, what's really exciting is you're now onboarding hundreds of thousands and millions of people who are coming to decentralized web, to interoperable economies because they want to have an experience of beauty or an experience of joy or entertainment. And so you're now converting just a whole new set of users. And so it's got to be completely seamless. It's not a, I don't pull out my credit card before I start thinking about buying art. I want to be immersed in that experience. I want to be part of a community. So it's basically being able to deliver as much of that before you come to them with "show me your money."
Totally, makes sense. Yeah, experience first, money later. Okay, I guess switching tack a little bit, and I guess this is also probably for Sebastian and Greg initially. Obviously the audience here, for the most part, and us here on the panel, we're a biased sample. We're very bullish on the future of what the metaverse can be and Web3 can be. But, what worries you about what are the riskiest things that we have to solve, whether individually or as a community, to make this dream a reality, right? Or if we were to fail, what do you think those failure points could be?
I'm having trouble.
The question, I guess, to try to rephrase it more succinctly, what are the biggest risks to us making this metaverse future a possibility?
Points of failure, potential points of failure.
Potential points of failure is centralized infrastructure, right? We all know how many times Amazon went down. We all know every time when you do a CryptoPunk transaction, you got to do a secondary transaction, right? Actually stores this somewhere that is controlled by someone that's not tied to your wallet, right? So there is this, I mean, there are essentially two transactions every time you do anything viable that's hosted on a Web 2. The one way to alleviate the risk is to move different critical parts of hosting and processing a certain piece of art off from a centralized infrastructure to a decentralized, right? You can store in RV, and you can use Akash to process that, the data, right? So, yeah.
That makes sense. Actually, so the question I intended, and phrased perhaps poorly, maybe Sebastian, you can try to take a stab at this, is like, what are the biggest challenges that we need to resolve to make all of this technology ready for 1 billion people, or are we just there yet and they haven't realized?
I wouldn't necessarily focus on the sort of infrastructure or technology challenges. I think that there is just by judging at the audience, you see the energy that is in the space and like how much attention is going into it. So eventually these will be overcome, whatever challenges for onboarding or for platforms to actually build in a decentralized way. I think that one of the biggest risks that we're facing, quite frankly, is just the inertia towards centralized sort of like shortcuts to make this happen. And then eventually, once you launch something in a centralized way with a centralized user experience, probably it's going to be relatively difficult to switch out of it completely without sort of like harming the user experience to which your users are already accustomed. And so I think that is the thing that worries me, and that's the thing that we should probably all be focused on and working on, making sure that the infrastructure is robust enough and that we don't get trapped into the sort of like centralized shortcuts way of things.
Totally, yeah. In some ways, you can write the code, but to change the behavior and overcome the inertia, it's sort of a different challenge. Okay, makes a ton of sense. All right, so before we wrap up, the thing we have to discuss is the elephant in the room, which is how do we think with the announcement of Meta and Facebook at least being the first to dive into what's likely to be a very centralized metaverse. What do you guys think the future looks like? Is it one in which the decentralized metaverse is a clear winner? Is it one in which they coexist in some way? Or is it one in which, or do we not know yet? Is it too early to say? And I guess, Kanan, if you want to take a first stab at that.
Cheers. I think one of the problems with the metaverse, going back to the last question, and even this one, is the economic incentives are not aligned to make an open ecosystem. And if you look at the Web 2 space, just no company in its right mind, frankly, unless it's starting from scratch, would ever give up any of the hold it has over the ecosystem in order to open it up for other people to extract value from it. Every token or portion of ownership they give you as part of the system is a portion of ownership they don't have. Why would they do that? I mean, I think that's pretty straightforward. And so, we say WAGME or WAGU or whatever it is, right? But on the other side, it's really like the old school companies have never made money that way, and I don't think we can ever expect them to. And so from a Facebook, I mean, there are many more companies who will come out with very similar setups. It is kind of on us to show that, frankly, for the end developer of the game, it's more profitable in this model. And if we can't do that, past kind of speculation and token printing aside, it's just not going to ever catch on, and someone will own the metaverse. And I think that's a very foreseeable and unfortunate circumstance of the future and how kind of the crypto space goes up and down. And if we're down and someone comes in, it's a potential possibility. So it's on us overall to show that we together are stronger than one company that can put ownership of the system before its users. And I think it's on us to also understand that we are giving up some of the overall value in the systems we create to instead make a system that is more beneficial for everybody.
Yeah, to that point, this is not the first time a centralized company tried to put claim to something that should be open and decentralized. If you remember AOL tried to own the internet, before browser and interoperability came and figured it out, right? There were hundreds of protocols before AOL, but eventually the world came together in a standard set of protocols and all figured out how to interoperate with each other. So history doesn't repeat, but it rhymes. So this time around, open protocols have a much better value capture mechanism through tokenization, right? So even though you don't, without even focusing on value capture, you can focus on value creation, and somehow the capture happens. And I think that creates a set of incentives that are extremely powerful, and that's going to reverse the trend much quicker from centralization towards decentralization. So.
Yeah, I can maybe take a little bit different view on this. That I don't think most of the world is going to get red-pilled in any way and join the true open, decentralized metaverse that we think is kind of the best place to be. A lot of folks are going to be very happy having 2 apps inside of Meta or Facebook or whatever it's called, and being able to take their pig avatar and use it in their, Knights of the Round Table game that they're playing, and they'll think they're in the metaverse, right? So they will be blue-pilled for the rest of their lives. They'll be living in Meta's version of the metaverse, and they'll be quite happy with that. But the opportunity that's here to create interoperable economies and to use some of this new technology to spark a whole new wave of entrepreneurship, of ownership, of founders, whether they're creatives of making art or music or creating new software tools, and owning that and then sharing that with their community. That's undeniable. It's going to be larger than anything we've seen. I just don't think it completely displaces the vanilla experience of living on whatever Facebook wants to call itself next year or the year after.
Yeah. I sort of agree. I think that that's going to be. I mean, it's Facebook after all.
Yeah.
Right. It's not a small company by any definition, and they definitely have the money and the people to just like throw at this. But it doesn't necessarily always work. I think incentives are the key factor here. So look, if the version that we built has consumer integrity, allows people to basically decide, I want it to look like this. I want it to run my own content policies. I want to own that myself. And if you also allow people to monetize it in a fair way, distributing the proceeds to the content creators and also rewarding people for their attention, I think that is pretty powerful. So yeah, I think that they're going to coexist, but at least it's my hope that we're going to win.
Awesome. Okay. Yeah. So I guess it does seem like actually, and I'm a little bit surprised by this. Like it's a pretty consistent tone, which is that the race is absolutely on. The winner is not determined, and it's really a combination of like the open community coming together and leveraging the incentives that tokens provide to go build this world and make it compelling enough to compete with Meta. And so I guess, we've got a lot of work to do.
Well said.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, all 4 of you, for joining. And I think we're wrapping up the evening with this.
Good to see you.
Thank you, man.
Kanan, great,
fun.
man.
Thanks.
Even though that was the last panel, I have some information for you. So first of all, thank you so much for joining us today at the growth stage. I know it's quite intense, a lot of content, but we really hope you enjoy this. Tomorrow, we have a full day of content prepared for you, starting at the Lax Factory in South Lisbon, and then following up again here to the growth stage. So second announcement is on your left, the lights in the garden are already on, as you can see. So we invite you to grab a drink, grab your friend or a partner, and join us for the little cocktail party today. It will be till 8 p.m. This venue works extended hours, so we all can enjoy each other's company, a nice walk through the garden, and a drink, and have some networking. For tomorrow, And many of you were asking about the closing party. Tomorrow we have a big event prepared for you, and this will be the only closing party, which is the only official event of the Breakpoint conference. It's a big event, huge one, 2,000 people. It starts tomorrow at 8 p.m. at the venue called Patio de Gala. Turn on the notifications on your event app. Follow us on Twitter. Check out your emails. We will remind you and send you all the directions so you don't miss it. But in case you miss it, follow the lights in the sky. Just a little hint for you. And so far, please join the cocktail party. Thank you.